the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, on the east coast of these United States, to the satellites above Earth, into your homes, your mobile devices. Folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and we have a different type of show we're going to do here tonight. I don't have a guest. Instead, I have a couple hosts who will be joining me tonight for a bit of a round table. Not going to be so round, though. More triangular. Pyramid, if you will, here tonight on Late Night in the Midlands. Actually was going to have tonight off, but to catch up on some things, but yeah, we're here, so that's a good thing. And tomorrow night you get the last frequency, and Thursday and Friday I've got a couple great guests coming. You could check out the schedule over on latenightintthemidlands.com. Now, if you go below the picture slider on the homepage, you'll see upcoming shows tab. There are my shows. That's where they're listed. And la-di-da. Now, for the other shows, you'll have to go to either their pages that I have on latenightintthemidlands.com, and of course there's links on those pages that'll take you to their websites. So you could go and check out what you must. I know that a lot of these shows are now being put back on YouTube by Ira, who has been very helpful in that manner, and so a lot of different things going on here, folks. And tonight we're going to talk, once Ryan joins us a little later, that is me and Ira, we're going to discuss a little bit of the origins of man and that kind of thing. And I thought in this, before we hit the break, Ira and I will maybe hit some events of the day. I'm a little lost today. I had gotten really busy today, and not even show wise. My furry little friend that was, rescued. Well, the furry little guy has had little fleas on him, and so I had to nip that in the butt immediately today because, first off, I'm not a big cat person. I'm not. I'm a dog guy. But, there's a few cats there that could grow on me. He's one of them until he rubs on my leg and one of his pets become mine. That's not good. And he's not an outdoor cat, but he was before we rescued him. So dealing with that, I think we nipped it in the butt pretty well. Autumn had found an incredible remedy. And so we'll let you know how it works out in the next couple days. But anyways, he is now banned from my studio. He is not allowed in here until he is okayed by the doctor. We're not going to have anything roaming around, not in my studio. So, anyways, folks, the website's www.latenightintthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, and by all means inform others. The call-in number tonight's 803-317-2264. And I will be periodically checking out the Twitter feed. I'll be checking out the chat room because I got a couple of the great hosts who are joining me tonight. I'll actually have time to turn my eyes to a few of these things, and I'll even be looking at my Facebook page periodically, so people can communicate with me all those ways. But the best way is right in our chat room. If you've got a question, you could private message it to me. And remember, all these shows, when they are done, my shows, Late Night in the Midlands, are archived on latenightintthemidlands.com. You go to the archive tab, there's a page full of them. And then there's some other pages, one that'll take you to some Blog Talk Radio archives from years ago. We've got all kinds of stuff there. You just gotta take the time and get used to it. And I know some of you are saying, well, we would if your damn site worked right on our phones. Well, I can assure you, I have done the bam bam on my web guy today. Picture me with the club and beating. Well, that's how it was today. I insisted it's got to get done. It's got to be corrected, and so it will be. I promise you. I've had a few people who have said, well, I'll subscribe when your website's working, right? Well, we're working on it. I thought it was. I didn't know. I don't use mobile devices. I'm not that savvy with all that internet technology. It's all at my desk. I've got computers. I've got a few of them here, but a couple that I use for the show. And it's I don't. When I leave the house, I leave all that behind. It's there's no need for me to bring a phone. I haven't had a phone since 2010. So I had no idea. I don't know until I'm told. And usually people wait until they're good and pissed off before they tell me about something. So, but anyways, Ira, I welcome you. My God, you live here.
Anymore, that seems to be the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw your toothbrush in the bathroom.
just pack me up in the corner somewhere. I'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, this is kind of one of those off nights, and I haven't got a good look at what's going on in the news today. I don't know if you've got anything that's on the edge of your mind that you want to share.
Well, I wanted to make sure that people understood like some of the things that are going on as far as the network goes, because we do have a few pieces of news that people might not have heard yet, and I wanted to make sure that people heard it loud and clear, because obviously more people listen to your show than anybody else's, so which is appropriate. Anyways, so one of the changes that came about as of just within the past 2 days is that we now are on TuneIn Radio. There is a stream available through TuneIn Radio. So those of you who have been looking for a way to listen through like iPhones and that sort of thing, you can go to the TuneIn and just search for LNM Radio, LNM Radio Network, or even I think just even LNM will bring up the station version of Late Night in the Midlands. You just tap that, hit follow, and anytime that you want to, then you can listen to it on any device. It's available on Mac, Windows, Android, and iPhones. So any device will support the TuneIn Radio app, and that is probably going to be the best way, if you can't listen through the site itself, to listen to the radio station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also were notified today that we were accepted into iTunes, and they would be adding us into the list within the next day to 2 days. Of course, we're reliant on Apple to get us in there, so yeah. it's whenever they do it is when it's done. But it is accepted. It has been added to their list, so within the next couple of days, it's going to be propagated onto iTunes, so everybody will be able to listen to it through there as well. But of course, the best way to listen to it is through LateNightInTheMidlands.com at the chat and listen page, because hey, not only are you going to be able to listen to the show, but you can interact with the community, and this community is amazing.
Yeah, and we want people to participate in the chat because, it's nice. It's been nice to see people in the chat on a regular basis. That's how it used to be until, we had to make cutbacks. But, thankfully we've been able to move ahead here and do even better than we did before. So, and we're bringing back Tough Reality. That's with Mike A. I pronounce his last name like I do some of my guests, so I'm not even going to go there. But Mike,
yeah, I believe it's Amseger, if I remember correctly.
Well, hey, you got it then.
Yeah, he will be added to the show's rotation. Right now, we're looking maybe at doing some of his archive shows, which are new shows, but they're from his archive. But then once he's got things established as far as his equipment are concerned, he's actually going to be broadcast live through here as well. So that'll be 5 days a week in the mornings. 10 o'clock in the mornings is what we're shooting for as the current slot. So
and that will be live from Beijing, China.
Yes. News from behind the Great Firewall.
Exactly. And, he was on the LNM Radio Network back when we had a 13-hour air span with Blog Talk Rip You Off. And he used to come on at 10 o'clock in the morning, but of course in China that was at night, and a lot of times he taught classes and you'd hear the class in the background. So we'll be picking up a lot of listeners from China. We got some now, but we've had some for a while, but that'll boost up. So yeah, get the message around,
Yep, exactly. And also starting, well, it started this morning actually, but we'll do it a little bit intermittently here for the first week. But in the mornings as well as in the evenings from the 6 o'clock slot on both of those, we're also going to be putting in The Real World with Steve Miller, not the musician. And that's a great show in and of itself. So.
Yeah. So that will be also, that'll be added as well. If many of you might remember back when Peter Kling was doing World Watchers with me, Stephen Miller was actually going to have a debate with Peter Kling. Remember, we had it set up this big debate, and then he decided not to do it. And I'm kind of glad he did, because listen, you're not going to get anywhere with guys like Peter. I mean, seriously, and I'm not trying to down the guy. I'm just saying that he is strongly stuck in his belief, and you can't fight that. I mean, if the child believes there's a boogeyman in the closet, you're not getting that child in that closet unless you force him.
Yep, exactly.
So. But so he'll be his show, The Real World, right?
The Real World, and we're going to be airing it at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time, 5 a.m. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. I can never get the timings right, but I know that people like to hear it. So, but yeah, so that we started doing that today, and we're going to play the same episode kind of intermittently here and there throughout this week, just so that people can hear it and get to understand that this is how this show is going to be. And then basically starting next week on Mondays is when we're going to do it. We'd like to do it more often if we can get a hold of more of his archives, essentially, is what it comes down to. So, but for right now, we're shooting for Mondays, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.
I actually have access. You know what I was thinking of doing, Ira, too, just for fill-ins, is going back through the old LNM network. I mean, we got a lot of shows there that we're running. I mean, everything Paranormal Perception. We had John DeSalvo. He had a show there, Mysterious Realms, I think it was called. And there was, of course, Helene Olsen's Lighthouse. Or Angel's Lighthouse. There's certainly a good deal of those shows, and I mean, those are some things we could throw in rotation too. I mean,
yes, absolutely, and I look forward to doing all of that kind of stuff, because there is so much information in those old archives that is still very relevant for here and right now, and I think that it would be very interesting for people to hear those kinds of things again. So, we're kind of looking for things basically to do while we fill up the schedule with new shows, and once the new shows get added into the rotations, that will be how the station will be. But until then, basically kind of be patient with us while we put all of this stuff together, and we're working hard for you guys to get everything going, and so far so good. I'm really enjoying how things are going so far.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too, and I just want to keep adding more and more good content, so that it gets tough for us to play any replays. That's what we're working towards. But it's good. I like that my show gets rerun again at 9 in the morning, right?
Yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when your new shows appear.
I think that's good. That's and to have everybody's show. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have at least half of the day, 12 hours of new content, and then maybe repeat it and eventually fill it all. I mean, if we could have 24 hours of all new content, that's where that's the goal.
Exactly. So we're looking forward to the changes here. I hope that you guys out there are enjoying them as well. And if you have any questions, you can definitely ask us. We're kind of being a two-man show at this point in time, two-man band as far as running this whole thing is concerned. But we'll get to them as best as we can. And again, please pardon any dust and bugs. This is a new endeavor for both of us, and I think so far so good. But of course, there's going to be a little bit of hiccups here and there. So,
yeah, and that's the way it goes. I make no apologies really, because if you want it done quicker, volunteer.
Exactly, or give us a lot of money so that we can have somebody do it for us.
Yeah, and and that's the problem, is that I could get things done a lot quicker, but I have people who want to help out, but they want to help out in sensitive areas, and I have to be careful, and I have to have complete trust in somebody before I could let them work anywhere near me. And so, you've gained that trust. Ryan's gained that trust. Rascala, he's had it for a long time. and it's really hard. You can't just let people get into the back end of your stuff if you don't know who you're dealing with. Because I've had people who they could totally fool you. You get like a Nooch or a Bracker, of course, but a guy like that though, you talk to for 10 minutes and you could tell there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, something hooky is there.
Yeah, something happened. Mama dropped him one too many times because she was drinking or whatever happened. I don't know, but yeah, you get those who can fool you. I mean, it's like Pete. He was a great guy too, but he let the pressure get to him, and he said some things he shouldn't have said, and I don't put up with that from nobody. I don't care who you are. Yep. You don't get to abuse me. I'm not here for your entertainment. So
Yep, exactly.
But anyways, it is what it is. I haven't had a chance to get any news or anything like that today, and I know that Ryan we talked a little bit earlier, and we wanted to talk about the origins of man, so we'll do that after the break, which we got a break coming up in a few minutes. Other than that, I mean, if people want to call in at 803-317-2264 after the break, then we'll take your calls, and you could steer us in any direction you like. No telling where the conversation will go tonight. But you're more than welcome to call in tonight, and we'll talk about just about anything as long as it's serious. So, but other than that, Ira, I guess that'll do it. So why don't we take our break, and when we come back, we'll have Ryan with us. Hopefully, he's supposed to join us at 9:30.
Absolutely. I'm ready for it.
All right, folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera with Ira Robinson, awaiting the arrival of Ryan Gable for a triangle-type table tonight. We'll be back. The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver. Liquid Dentist GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. OxySilver works three ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great great discounts from thecureshop.com. Buy Oxy Silver, GI Floor Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at cureshop.com. That's cureshop.com with 2 P's. CURESHOPPE.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
The LNM Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an LNM subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
In many cases is the idea that the aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves. They're interested in our DNA, our genetic makeup.
Bodies.
And beyond that, they're interested in our personalities,
the heads were larger,
our
and the
affection
eyes
for
were
our
rather
children, our
sunken
love for one another, a whole kind
slanted.
of range of
They were
what we think of almost the most human characteristics we have
not of
emotionally.
This earth.
We have to face up to reality that, for example, the UFO phenomenon is a real phenomenon, no question about it. So anybody who debunks the UFO phenomenon itself don't know what he or she's talking about.
Hey, Michael, I promised you I'd call in for a little bit, and here I am.
I know that I bashed Bush the entire time. I wasn't even allowed on Coast to Coast there for a while because I was told not to talk about Bush.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Late Night in the Midlands. We cover everything. Don't. And, you know, I'm not going to call you names, but there's a few that would probably fit you if you think that the things that we discuss here are just, you know, fairy tales, because they're not. Don't get me wrong. Once in a while we'll get a call about either the moon blowing up or Planet X positioning and things like that. And some of that could be fairy tales. But for the most part, we stick to getting out facts and sticking to the truth, and you know, and it's good to expand the mind, talk about the things we don't know for sure, because it's fun to put it all together, I guess, with others. And that's probably what we're going to do a little bit of tonight here on Late Night in the Midlands. By the way, you can go over to LateNightInTheMidlands.com, join the chat room over on the chat and listen page. If it's not working for you on your phone, well, there's other links you can go to too. There's www.trollman.com. There's tune in. You're not going to get the chat room there, but I think the only two places you're going to get this chat room right now is at latenightinthe-midlands.com and www.trollman.info. If you join the chat room over there, it's combined with this one. It's connected, so you'd be seen no matter which site you were on. So you could use either one of them. But then there's your site, Ira, which is what?
OpenEyesNetwork.com. I don't have the chat room available on there, but I do have the stream available there as well. So, and you can find the stream very easily. I have a very large blinking red button that says "Listen Live." All you have to do is tap that, and the stream will start for you.
Okay, and what we might have to do at some point is get you the code there so you could add the chat if you want something.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely would like to add the chat to that page as well.
Because it's all combined. If somebody gets in over on your site, we're still going to see them over on mine. So
yep, exactly. It'd be a good idea, definitely.
So it works out. But hey, I'm sorry to those who have tried to use phones for the last several months, and my site has been so horrible for you. But, I didn't know. And for a little while there, I was on XP, so the site didn't even look right to me. And I thought that's all it was. But he did tell me that, he got the home page and the chat and listen page optimized. But I looked over on Autumn's phone today, and I was shocked at what I saw. And, and then, of course, Ira, you sent me a picture. And I've had a few others who aren't very happy who sent me pictures as well. So I hear you all, and I'm doing everything I can. We got a lot going on. It's hard to keep up with everything, but the website is very important. That's got to be right. So
yeah, that's your mission headquarters, the home base, and that's where everybody goes to. So especially for donations and subscriptions. Which hey guys, seriously, donate and subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, because we're doing this because of those donations and because of those subscriptions. That's the reason why this is able to happen. Please keep them coming in, because this is what's going to keep it alive. It's needed now more than ever, really.
Yeah, and that's just it. We had, like I say, I had the LNM network when we first made it a network. 2012 when I left the Bald Eagle there. And we got, like I say, we had 13 hours of broadcasting, but times got the tough. Some things started happening, and we just couldn't afford to keep it up. And then, of course, Blog Talk screwed us out of, I think it was $1,300 or $1,400. So that said, it just hurt us, and it was almost intentional too. Our chat room was getting attacked, our phone lines were being attacked, everything was happening over there, and it was like MI6 Blog Talk Radio. But it really was.
Yeah. I know that it can get really bad when you're dealing with the other sources like that. That's the one reason why I think this is such a great thing that's happening right now, because you're in control of everything at this point. There's no middlemen that are happening basically to allow this stuff to go on. So
yeah, and I could say things like Dr. Nooch is a puke, and he can't go and report it to Spreaker and have my show removed, because I own all my content now. So, but I'm not here to talk about him. He's not worth it. And again, I thank him for all the free advertising.
Oh yeah, sure, exactly. Even the negative PR, they always say, even the bad stuff is good stuff, because it'll lead everybody to you.
Well,
so.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity as long as you're not being a pedophile. Now, if you're in the public eye because of that, all the power to you. I wouldn't want to be you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I could say. But let me see here. Is this Ryan? This is Ryan, and he is ready. So I'm going to bring him in with us. All right.
Just in time.
Yeah, just in time, Ryan. Oh, he's not here yet. Hold on a second. Well, we're trying. It's ringing. Yeah, it's still ringing. All right, well, he'll come in. It's like this. I don't know. It's like every time I call him, I don't get him, and then he'll have to call me back. I think he's here, though. Are you here, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, there you are.
Well, welcome aboard. We were just talking about not wanting to be a pedophile. That's one publicity you wouldn't want, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so anyways, Ryan, I think one of the things you wanted to discuss tonight was human origins, right? But I thought if you had any news that you wanted to touch on beforehand, that would be great as well, because Ira and I came empty tonight.
Well, as a matter of fact, I came a little bit empty-handed too. So I don't have any news. I had to cook dinner, and I haven't had a chance to look through what was going on, and no current events. I've been reading a lot today about the subject that you just mentioned, which is why I wanted to discuss it tonight. But no news that I'm aware of.
All right, great. Well, let's get into that subject, because it's always an interesting one. And, I've been trying to find the time to catch up and watch there's some videos on some different things like Moon, Mars, and early Earth and things that I've been wanting to check out, but I haven't got a chance to do that yet. But nevertheless,
Well,
One of my
today,
favorite subjects for sure.
today I went back and I listened to that back-to-back episode that you and I did, Michael. We did 3 hours on my show. I think you joined me for an hour, and I interviewed a guy named M. Don Shorn, who wrote a series of books called The Journals of the Ancient Ones. I know a lot of my listeners are familiar with his work, and it's basically his theory based on evidence of humanity's origins, dealing with the different races of extraterrestrials and the destruction of certain planetary objects in our solar system, how the solar system came about, and then how ancient human civilizations were able to develop this advanced technology. So on that same episode, I think we had also, you and I had talked of some current events, but then we were talking about the blood moon and Fred Steckling and his book Bases on the Moon, or Alien Bases on the Moon.
That was the show that Dr. Troll
got taken down.
Yeah, because he didn't want people to know anything.
Yeah, that was the Sailing Stones one.
The Sailing Stones one, right. So the back-to-back part of that came in where on the last frequency, 2 days later, you and I recorded a live show where we talked about those Sailing Stones. And just a quick recap for anybody who might have missed that, there are pictures from the Apollo missions of craters on the moon, and there are what look like some type of circular spherical object, a type of boulder, that rolled down the crater, up the other side of the crater in a straight line, as far as you can tell from the photographs, and then just keeps on moving along and eventually stops. And there are dozens and dozens of these photos. You can find them on NASA if you know what you're looking for, although I think we gave out some of the exact files from NASA's website when we did that show. Now, what's really significant about that is that we know from what NASA has told us that there is no atmosphere, or it's minuscule to none, on the moon. Well, if you look at the real photographs that are in color and not just black and white, because NASA said they didn't have enough money to pay for colored photographs, that's one of my favorite excuses.
Yeah.
The color of the moon is not actually gray. The color of the moon is a very auburn red, kind of like southwest United States, out in the middle of the desert, almost like a shade of red, as if you were looking at the planet Mars. So you had made the suggestion that perhaps when we see a blood red moon, we see the blood moon, that maybe that's Earth's atmosphere shifting so that we can actually see what the real moon looks like, what the real color of the moon is. So we talked about that, and the Sailing Stones are interesting because here on Earth at the same time, scientists were studying rocks in Death Valley that seemed to just move across the desert. Both of the explanations that they came up with, one was that moisture gathered during the nighttime and froze, and so the rocks went sliding across the tops of the desert, which that didn't make any sense really to me because these rocks left a very, very impressionable impression in the dirt and in the soil. The next thing was they said that the combination of water in the desert, the little bit of water that does exist in the desert when it does rain, and wind conditions from the atmosphere moved these rocks, in some cases a mile, 2 miles, and not only did they move the rocks didn't roll, the rocks moved on a bottom, on their bottom edge, and they moved for miles in a directly straight line.
They slid.
Well, that's what they claim. They claim they slid. But yeah, either way, they either moved, they slid, whatever word you want to use. And they moved some of them moved for miles. So both scientific explanations here on Earth say that there were atmospheric conditions that led to these rocks moving. So, if you take that information and apply it to the photographs we have from Apollo, these are NASA photographs, we look at this and we say, well, if these things on the moon are moving, they either have to be artificial, somebody has to be controlling them, somebody or something, or there have to be atmospheric conditions on the moon. And I kind of go with the last one. There have to be some type of atmospheric conditions on the moon. We don't know what the real moon looks like. The photos we get are very distorted and photoshopped, and that's even been admitted from NASA. There's a woman, I forget her name, who won an award for editing photos from the moon, from NASA, from space probes and satellites, and also from the Apollo missions. So, with that being said, guys, I thought that it would be very interesting to, as we understand, and I kind of reminisced about that today because I listened to most of the entire show, all 6 hours of it today while I worked, and I was actually thinking, well, we need to get together and do another show about something similar to this. And then you messaged me and said you want to do a roundtable, and I thought, well, there's the synchronicity again. And it was interesting also when we started talking about those sailing stones, Michael. Remember, we got off air that night, and within about 10 minutes of being off air, we went over to Yahoo, and there was just a story posted about how they solved the mystery of the moving rocks.
That's right. And it wasn't long after that the show kept getting taken down from YouTube and from Spreaker and from Vimeo, and it just everywhere it went, boy, it was getting taken down. And I'm thinking, what the hell? So, you had the COINTELPRO there, who was, using their power and getting things removed, which they've lost that power with me now, because now they can't do anything except for listen to me.
The cool synchronicity with it as well is that this morning, when I was downloading some of your archived shows off of your site, Ryan, I ran across that one, and I actually downloaded that one and trying to figure out how to slip that 6 hours into the schedule somewhere because it had, both the your show and then one with Michael as well. So it's really funny synchronicity with all of it.
That's right, and we just know that we're in the right place at the right time. This is a great night to talk about this.
Yes,
and with that. And I'd like to start out actually with these sailing stones because these boulders, they're moving, sliding, whatever. They're leaving trails on the ground. That's why I say sliding. But these things are moving, and they're also doing the same thing on the moon. So it begins to beg the question if something's going on below ground, both here and on the moon, because they say it's atmospheric here on Earth. But okay, well then what's going on the moon? So it don't make sense. We're being lied to again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at the conditions that occur when these things move, they're pushing all of the dirt in front of them. So, I mean, this is something that's a very powerful force that's working on these stones as they're moving. It's some kind of very potent force that's pushing them along because they're dragging all of the dirt in front of them as well. I mean, if you take a sled, for instance, and you try to pull it through the snow and it starts to dig down a little bit into the snow and it starts to dig the rest of that snow along with it, you know how much harder it is to pull that sled as opposed to when it's just sitting on top of the surface.
I was going to say, keep in mind there's metals in these rocks too.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to get to, is that what I think actually is occurring, or maybe part of the mechanism that's involved with this stuff, is maybe not the atmospheric conditions that are taking place, but that it's actually like maybe like an iron type of thing that's contained within the stones themselves, and then underneath the surface, perhaps there is movement of the earth underneath the surface, and it's causing sort of a piezoelectric response to happen in the ground. When you take two objects and you start to really crunch them together very, very hard, it creates a function in science. It's called piezoelectricity. And if you then have that piezoelectricity working with the metals that are there underneath the surface as well, suddenly now you have a very powerful, almost an electromagnetic kind of a force that's happening.
Yeah, and you know what I read. Just the way that you simply described that, it's amazing to me how three guys who have just dedicated their time to researching such subjects can have a better understanding of the way in which the world functions, more so than a PhD, an archaeologist, or a doctor who is supposed to study this full time and as a profession.
Well, they don't study; they memorize.
They memorize, they repeat. That's right. Hey, I was looking. I just found my book, Alien Bases on the Moon, the revised edition, and I'm looking through it. And one of the photographs with one of these boulders, some of them were different sizes. It's, if anybody wants to look it up, it's NASA photograph number 67H1135 LOV. And the estimation of the size of this object was 75 feet across. And there's another one on another photographic plate that's about 15 feet across. And one of these actually went 30 miles. It was photographed 30 miles straight. And it went down a crater, crossed the crater, and back up the other side of the crater. Wait a minute,
this is a rock that did that?
This is apparently a rock. It must have been the pet rock. He took off down the crater and up the other side.
I wonder if it wasn't a shell with feet below it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Extraterrestrial crustacean, perhaps.
There you go. Maybe. And the thing that comes to my mind with it, too, if going with that piezoelectric sort of electromagnetic type of situation, if you think about this, everybody, I think, has gone through different experiments through the years where they take a table and they put a metal object on top of the table. They take a nice potent magnet and they put it underneath the table and they just start dragging that thing across the top of the table. I mean, I used to do that when I was a kid. Yes. You could do the same with iron filings and a magnet underneath a piece of paper or something. It's along those lines is what I'm thinking is actually occurring with all of this.
That's what Bugs Bunny did in Space Jam to get Michael Jordan's golf ball to go in the hole.
Yeah, there you go.
and then there's you could get out there just a little bit and say, okay, what if there are crafts, even if they're our own military craft that are below ground, and they've got these magnetic fields that are around them, and when they move below ground, they pull the rock, magnetized. Yeah. So
I think either theory is credible. I don't even want to present my own theory. I just think I want to make the listeners aware that the fact is, regardless of the theory, the information that we have from mainstream institutions, from the professional communities, is 100% wrong, and we can prove that with very, very simple evidence that I have in front of me right now. So then that begs the question and opens the door to the speculations that you guys have.
Yeah, well, I will say as well that when it comes to the Death Valley rocks, for instance, that you guys are, referring to, the sailing stones that are here on Earth, the Native American tribes have known about this phenomenon for a really long time. These things go back in legends, for a very long time.
They know about everything. The problem is half of us don't listen to them.
yeah, exactly.
We're listening to Ira.
Yeah, tell us.
So, I mean, that alone should tell you, though, that these things are occurring. What they've usually said was that there was that it was the interactions of Father Sky or Grandfather Sky and Mother Earth. Basically, they're getting into an argument essentially and throwing stones at each other. And these are the movement, the stones, basically them arguing in the middle of the night when nobody's watching.
And Ryan, good question comes in the chat, and I don't remember correctly myself, but if I do remember correctly, all the rocks were moving, right? Not just a couple here and a couple there.
You mean on Earth or on the moon?
Well, in this Death Valley area, because I guess what the question is are these rocks moving in the same direction? Are they moving at the same time, or are they moving at different times? Because you'd be wondering if they're all being affected, or why just one or two of them are being affected.
Yeah, from my research, it's different stones. It's multiple stones that get moved, and they do move in different directions, but they also do it at different times. So like one night it might be 2 or 3 here, another night it might be another 2 or 3 there, and they're moving in opposite directions.
So it depends.
That's what I remember too.
Yeah, it depends what road they take down below.
Yeah, because you and I had talked about that. We were theorizing why, because some of the rocks are moving for somewhere a quarter, a half to a full 3-4 miles, one going in one direction, the other going in the other direction, somewhat parallel to each other. So yeah, they do move in different directions.
So there could be like, what do you call that? One of those interstate loops going down there, and who knows? Well, maybe the vehicles below. Maybe they have like these roads and these vehicles below, so they don't have the gas fumes. Maybe they run out and have magnets that. They
might be like a maglev train, like you see over in Japan.
Yeah, something like that,
or some type. It could simply be. It's like the holes in Siberia, those sinkholes. There might not be an extraterrestrial explanation for it, but there might be a scientific explanation that we just are not really aware of yet.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of things we're not aware of, but what I wonder, here's my big question, is how much do they know? They being those who have kept so much from us, how much do they know? Do they know it all? Or do they think they know it all?
That's a good train of thought, because if you apply that to looking at images of the moon, there are other NASA photographs, and I didn't want to really make this about NASA photographs tonight, because you can kind of have a field day with that, but there are a lot of other photographs that show right angles of what might actually look like a remnants of a building, for example. But right angles are not something that is really constructed by nature. Nature constructs in a different form, in a different way, kind of a flowing, circular or curvy kind of a method, that female energy, if you will, a goddess. So when you look at stuff like that, the point that I think is the most important to get across, and the main one that I want to use as a jumping point tonight, is to understand that what we have been told about our solar system, what we've been told about the origins of humanity, what we've been told about the moon, for example, is much different than the reality of what we have, that is really the evidence that's right in front of us. And I remember last week on my show, I covered 2 news stories. I know you guys remember these. I've been talking about them a lot recently, and I think they are so important to get out there because it was in the mainstream. Archaeologists found these. The underground pyramid that was found in Bolivia near Tiahuanaco, and the other one that was so massive that some people, I think, thought it was a mountain, and it was in Indonesia. And the one in Indonesia, guys, dated back over 4,000 years, conservatively estimated, past the pyramids at Giza, over 9,000 to 20,000 years ago. So the pyramids at Giza are dated around 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, conservatively, and I think they're much older than that. But this one in Indonesia was dated 9,000 to 20,000 years ago. And if you're not really aware of scientific history, if you will, that predates the last ice age, the ending of the last ice age. So for that thing to have been constructed, it would have had to have been constructed prior to the last ice age, which would set, I think, in motion a catastrophe for mainstream thought in terms of history and the way that humans have evolved over the past thousands and thousands of years.
Right, because that would place it somewhere around 150 plus thousand years ago, basically.
Oh yeah, and there were multiple ice ages, and the last ice age that we faced, I think it ended somewhere around 9,500 to the most, I think, prominent answer I've heard is like 11,500 years ago. Which I mean, at the least, the thing was that pyramid was not constructed at that time period. So you're right. I mean, we're looking at least 100,000 plus years ago this thing was constructed, which also means that this has got to push our modern understanding scientifically and genetically and historically of the evolution of humanity back hundreds of thousands of years, to know that you and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago as well. We've seen different studies out now where scientists are beginning to realize that humans, as we speak today, this is not some type of new form of communication, that what we consider to be Neanderthals, or basically cavemen, had a very complex set of languages that they spoke, and they were able to communicate very much like we do today, maybe even more complex than we do today. And they would have obviously had some type of way to keep records and to discern information and to study the heavens. And there's really only a couple of explanations for this. It's either we have lost so much information from antiquity, basically, everything that makes us human, everything that makes this a civilization, that it's taken hundreds of thousands of years for us to reach this point, and the remnants of some of these structures are left over from that prior advanced ancient civilization, which I'm on board with. However, with whatever catastrophe wiped out that civilization, and for the time that it takes for the flora and the fauna to once again begin to produce in the same manner that it does as we see it today, for humans to kind of evolve, and I don't mean it in a Darwinian sense, but to continue to evolve to where we are to this point again today, there is a much more there's much more of a discrepancy between what we have today in terms of our understanding of how humans evolved and I think what is reality. And what is reality, I think, guys, has pushed our modern version of humans back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. So it's either that there was an advanced ancient civilization here on Earth that we've lost basically all traces of, or there would have had to have been help from some extraterrestrial species at some point. Maybe they only came to help us genetically, and they became the gods of old, or maybe they were here and maybe they still are here today. Either way, though, we are missing enormous amounts of information.
Yeah, exactly. We've gone from point A to point D without knowing what happened on B and C. And we look at things here in point D and say, well, we know the answers. These answers are easy to find. Here you go. This is what it is. But then they completely eliminate B and C out of the equation, and you can't get there. It's no longer that straight line. They have to do all of the lying, the fudging, and the finagling to get D to fit into A, and their lies become obvious. It really is the truth that we as human beings have been lied the entire time that we've existed, basically. You know, from our point of conception forward, what we're told about life, what we're told about reality is completely wrong. It's a lie. You look at how scientists treat consciousness as a great example. This is one that I talk about often. Scientists say that they understand what consciousness is. They understand it. Oh, yeah, it's this. It forms out of the brain and blah, blah, blah. But then they have no clue. They can't explain how consciousness actually functions. They can't explain even what its purpose is. They can't explain where in the brain is consciousness.
Well, listen, any scientist who claims to know what consciousness is lying. Because nobody knows exactly what it is until they could say where it can be found. And we know we have it, but you can't, it could be the entire soul. It could be whatever. I don't know. See, that's just it. We know we have it, but we don't know what it is.
Well, what we're trying to do, it seems, is if I have a math problem, 2 + 2 = 4, we're being asked to solve that problem, but we're not being given 2, and we're not being given plus. They're just giving us, hey, here's the number 4, solve for 4, and there's no formula to put together. They're telling us to build a supercomputer, and here's a chisel.
Yeah, exactly. And what I liken it to, I've told you this story before, Ryan, but I liken it to the idea of the story of 3 blind men trying to describe an elephant. They will touch one person's touching the tail and they say, here's what the elephant is. One person's touching the side of it and says, no, this is what it is. One person's touching the trunk and they say, no, this is what it is. And all 3 of them are wrong because they're not able to see the whole picture. That's what scientists today are doing. And I think a lot of it is done intentionally. I mean, a lot of it is done a lot of them, I guess you could say, are doing it just to perpetuate their own degrees, to make themselves feel better about the thousands of dollars that they've spent on their degree. And if they were proven wrong, oh crap, I just spent 20 years putting out this thesis that's now incorrect and it's been proven to be incorrect. Well, what am I going to do now? But then there are those that are out there, I think, that do know and understand the truth of things, and they have been basically lording it over the rest of humanity because it gives them a power. It gives them a control because knowledge is power. And we, the knowledgeless, have no power.
It's ego. That ego gets in the way. I mean, that's what you're talking about with university and with the way that people, they go to college and they get an education. They think and they spend thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars on a doctorate or whatever degree that they acquire. And if you come up to them and say that, hey, this information that you think it's incorrect, Well, immediately they reject that out of a sense of self-preservation, because how could it be incorrect? They just spent $250,000.
Oh.
They've got to work the rest of their life to pay that off. You know, they're not incorrect. You're incorrect. And
we dealt with that. You and I have talked to doctors like that. Yeah.
Firsthand. And you know, that coupled with what you said, Ira, there are a lot of people who really, I think, just want this other information to be covered up. They don't want people to really think about their true origins. The thing is, there's really got to be something special about humanity's origins in some capacity, or at least our abilities, not that we're special in the vast scheme of things, but our abilities, to where we are suppressed so vehemently to where everything in our society is based around keeping us dumbed down, keeping us unintelligible, and eliminating, specifically taking certain drugs and certain chemicals to target the parts of the body and the mind and the endocrine system that lead to spiritual evolution and advancement. It's almost like this race has been hijacked by a type of like parasite or something, is what it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the idea of the atom. Okay, let me toss this out, because this fits right in with the way that the system of things has been set up. We're told that we can't exceed the speed of light, and so therefore time is existent and all of this kind of stuff. But then when you think about things, if you go into just a slightly deeper level, we're all made up of atoms, and the core of the atoms is moving at the speed of light. So we're already running at the speed of light, you know? So, of course, then everything else starts to fall apart as far as their theorems are concerned. You know, they don't ever take that kind of thing into consideration.
That explains where all them years have gone then.
There you go. Yeah.
They've gone.
So over time, that information becomes even more distorted because people continue to promulgate these false ideas, and whether they were originally promulgated to a degree in order to keep information secret, or because people were lazy, or because people wanted to interject their own romanticized versions of reality, and over even a decade. Look how much information has been distorted just since September 11th. Now we're talking thousands and thousands of years. Plus, once you put into that a sense of ego and control, and people that really have no ethics and no morals, and that they'll do whatever they need to do to get power, the truth just ends up a victim in this case. And I think that if we understood our true origins, we might have more respect for ourselves as a species. And I mean, obviously, that the controlling system the way that it is today does not want that. That's why this information is so laughed and scoffed at.
I was just going to say, we would understand our origins if it was allowed to be passed through time, but it hasn't. It's been suppressed by those who want to stay in control. And it's been a long plan. I mean, they've had this planned out for thousands of years. I mean, it's just, nobody's thought, well, hey, it ain't going to happen in my lifetime. They didn't care. It's like the power has been passed, and it's been pushed and pushed and pushed. And I mean, this agenda has been going on well before Christ, I'll tell you that. And it's been going on for a long time. And you talk to a guy like Michael Cremo, and he'll tell you about caves that were discovered in California, that people were something like 250,000 years old, that the remains that they found in there, and the clay this and clay that. But you don't hear about that. They don't tell you about that in the textbooks. He says that civilization could go back some civilization goes back as far as 1 million years ago. I know, but they're saying, no, we've only been here for, a few thousand years, and that's just not true. I mean,
Well, that is extremely important to understand, because a lot of, for example, archaeologists that work on the Great Pyramids, a lot of them are Muslim. And if you put that into context, I know a lot of people don't really know as much about Islam, but look at Christianity. So many Christians literally believe that the Earth is only a couple thousand years old, right? And that it formed in 7 days.
There are, and I talked to one not long ago, and it was out and about, and said, "Oh no, I believe in what I've been taught, and that is that and he went into his religious thing about the Earth only being a couple thousand years old, and I felt uncomfortable, quite frankly. I had to walk away."
You can't use any kind of logic on the people that have that kind of an attitude. It just doesn't happen.
Somebody should have hugged you when you were a child. I'm sorry.
And if you have that belief system, then if somebody presents you, even if it's physical, visible, definitive evidence that this structure here that was made by man, or maybe some extraterrestrial species perhaps, whatever this was this pyramid in Indonesia, for example, that's 9,000, 20,000 years old, and you're a Christian who believes, let's say, the Earth's only 5,000 years old, that automatically is outside of your belief system, that's outside of what you're allowed to believe, so you automatically reject it, even against the hard evidence that's in your face, the fact that it exists. Here it is. You reject it visually and just on the matter of principle because it disagrees with what you've been conditioned to believe.
Right.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say it's the same type of people that Bill Hicks talks about when he says, that dinosaur bones, explain dinosaur bones, and the devil put those there to tempt us, and you're here to tempt me, okay?
That's right. Yeah, the devil put those there. He also came before Jesus, and he formed the Mithra religion. So
right.
He's got a time machine, I think.
Right, and see, this is where all those distortions that you talk about take place. The people, there are a lot of people that are like that, and not just with those kind of ideas, but with others as well that say, well, this is our belief system, this is what we have put into place, and everything else has to fit into it. And if they happen to be the victors at any time throughout history, that's what history has now become. So then everything else has to be relearned.
That's right.
Blaming the devil is like blaming alcohol, as far as I'm concerned. That's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that, Mike. Totally. Go ahead,
Ryan. A ruling culture's beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs, everything will be instilled on that dominating culture will be instilled on a culture that has been conquered, that has been defeated. So obviously that's another way in which information is distorted. Michael, you were talking about the age of humans, and supposedly the Homo erectus strand of humanity appeared about 1.8 million years ago. Now what's interesting about that, I discovered, is that Homo sapiens, as we have today, or I guess you could call them kind of proto-sapiens, appeared 400,000 years ago. And this was a branch that is part of the Homo sapien lineage. They appeared about 400,000 years ago, Homo sapiens. However, this is conventional belief, by the way, conventional. And in Kenya, in Africa, a man named Dr. Richard Leakey in 1972 found a fossil of a skull that dated back 2.8 million years, and the skull was that, not of some Neanderthal or some monkey. It was a 2.8 million year old skull of a Homo sapien. So that predates the most conservative estimates of the Homo erectus by almost, 1.2 million years.
And that's just what got out. I mean, I'm sure that they've discovered others and said, you know what, put the dirt back over that.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah. The Smithsonian has been destroying all different kinds of evidence like this for many years now, just as one example.
And look how they're using this ISIS too to go into these historical places, and destroy all the artifacts. I'm telling you, folks, our past is being erased because all we're gonna know. We're gonna be like, you ever watch Planet of the Apes? You see how they didn't want the humans to read or write, and that's where we're going. That's exactly what we're looking at.
Well, look, I go back to the Gulf War as a great example of this. When we went in to get involved over there in Iraq the first time around, Saddam Hussein had just completed unburying Babylon. Just gotten done with it, just gotten done kind of restoring things and started finding all these different artifacts from the Babylonian era. And right away, right after that, boom, we start moving in. And then the first thing that we do is we start moving into the museums. We start moving into those areas that had been uncovered.
That's exactly what happened in 2001 when we invaded Iraq.
Yes, precisely.
That's right. And Egypt too. It wasn't just Iraq. Egypt and anywhere else they can. I'm telling you, they're just going through place by place, wiping out the history of mankind because they know that we've all gotten smarter. If you do your research, you find out that there's a whole lot you've been lied to about. And I'm telling you, it's coming to a point. This pin has come to a point. No, it's something's going to go. I don't know.
Well, you guys know that. Remember when the Ukraine, I guess you could call it incidences, broke out last year? We were hearing about Ukraine and Russia, and of course George Soros. Okay, well, when that happened, just like you're saying, I read about Saddam Hussein, and then of course what we did to the museums and the artifacts in Iraq when we invaded or liberated. Excuse me, to be politically correct, we liberated the country.
Brought them democracy.
We brought them democracy with bombs. Yes, absolutely.
We droned babies. You betcha.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of losing my train of thought on what I was going to say because I just started thinking about, oh, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But I guess the main point that I think is really important to get across and for people to understand. I know what I was going to say. In Ukraine, there was actually another underground pyramid found during the time of that crisis that broke out. So,
yes, I remember that.
Remember that?
Yeah, I
and
do.
There was one found in Antarctica as well. A team of researchers from the U.S. and Britain and another country found pyramids in Antarctica. So my point is, and I've said this a lot recently, and what I think is the most important thing to understand, and I personally, I believe that most listeners, when they hear this, unless you've studied it for them, yourself, they've studied it for themselves, don't appreciate the full context, the full scope of what this implies. For there to be structures, whether they're underground, whether they're buried intentionally or constructed underground, from Japan to Bolivia to Indonesia to Egypt, and Antarctica, which we know had a subtropical climate a couple million years ago, and this was actually mapped on some ancient maps, thousands and thousands of years old. So somebody obviously had some type of ability to see from the sky, to see from the heavens what the outline of Antarctica looked like without ice. And if you go down there and you see that they've got pyramids down there, there's pyramids all over the world. At the very base, guys, even, again, being conservative, to have an understanding, as the ancient people did, and I don't just mean we think ancient Egypt, ancient Sumer, I'm talking about every ancient culture and every ancient tribe, every book you can think of, every text, the Rig Veda, the Mahabharata, the Bible, of course, is one of the biggest ones, the Book of Zan, which is like one of the oldest texts ever written that we have, written on palm leaves, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of
Ryan,
years, tens of thousands of years ago.
You know the Bible is the #1 selling book of all time.
It is, and it's been made into much more of a myth. But the point is, guys, and if you look at that Bible, Michael, it contains incredible wisdom. It contains information that I've been reading a little bit from the Book of Zan. And if you read the Book of Zan, there is a story like the Sumerian epic of creation, the Enuma Elish, that described the formation of the heavens and of the earth in a 7-day kind of a period. The thing about it is, guys, it describes it, and it's the craziest thing for me is that when I'm reading it, it's not describing it in a way where I can say, I can interpret it in this manner. It's describing the formation of the heavens in the best scientific terms that they had in those days that equate to our descriptions of the Big Bang theory today. So there is, plus it's mixed with more of a spiritual overlook and what I would consider to be the truth of a kind of a divine creator, but that being an energetic source, and we just anthropomorphize it by giving it this image of a physical male god. And when we look at something like this, these ancient cultures and tribes that we think are so primitive, to have an understanding, think of this. Let's say that we go back to this pyramid in Indonesia, all right? Let's just conservatively go with 9,000 years, okay, right at the end of the last ice age. If we go to that time period, let's say that the last drop of the last piece of ice melted and some humans as we know them today emerge, and they just begin building monuments for whatever reason. And they all of a sudden have a complex understanding of the heavens. And they write these incredible texts that describe the origins of the universe. The point is, that doesn't happen overnight. So, a couple of things are happening here. One, there's been some sort of intervention by another species, by another culture that is tremendously more advanced, that of which we don't have evidence for today. Maybe it's buried in the Arctic ice. But it could also be some type of local extraterrestrial species, interdimensional species. That's a lot of speculation personally. But at the very least, if you look at a culture like that that was able to describe things like the precession of the equinoxes, at minimal take 26,000 years to observe, you would have to have a full, detailed, complex understanding and be able to transcribe it, have a language to be able to communicate with people in ways to, again, scribe the information down so that you could pass it down. You would have to have all of that, which takes, in and of itself, thousands and thousands of years to develop, without outside influence. We are talking about a distortion in the ways in which we think humanity has evolved, to a point where, if you look at Egypt, when the Egyptian dynasties first started, Ira, you and I were talking about this the other day. They started more scientifically, mathematically, architecturally more brilliant than the later dynasties that came about. So they declined from the beginning. So we're missing something.
And just to get to the Egyptian ones, the Egyptians themselves said that they did not get their knowledge from learning it. They picked it up basically from the civilization that was there before. It was called the Zep-Tepi, the time before time. So even they themselves said, we just learned this from them,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for example, people worried about the Mayan calendar. The Mayans got that from another culture. That wasn't something that they developed. The pyramids that the Egyptians are credited with, that's not something they built. Look, the ones they did build were not as proportional to things such as pi or the golden mean. They were not as structurally sturdy as the Great Pyramids at Giza. They were not as aligned with the stars as those Great Pyramids. So those are the ones that humans built. I'm thinking that there might have been some other type of intervention that came into play with the construction of some of these other magnificent monuments. Again, either that or there was some sort of ancient civilization that is far surpassed our understanding of math, science, architecture, geometry, and all the rest that we just don't have evidence of, or the evidence has been thoroughly suppressed, or, again, it was a human society that was given information by some type of godly figure. Either way, the point is to understand the significance and the impact and the weight of what this means is that even if you conservatively, and I'm talking as conservatively as possible, even you tried to fit this in with many religious beliefs in Islam and Christianity, there's no possible way that these structures could have been built to the proportions that they were, that these people could have had this complex understanding of the Big Bang, for example, even if you don't believe in the Big Bang, for the simple fact that they described it as we describe it today, tens of thousands of years ago, they would have had to have deep space probes, Hubble telescopes, and a vast understanding of astrophysics to even be able to come close to describing what our modern science is just beginning to understand.
And they may have had those things, and this is what really irritates me, is that I know we're being lied to, because for them to have that information, what would make them any different than us? It took us how long? We had to build instruments to be able to do it? I mean, well, they had that stuff, so, they weren't playing with stone tools. It's...
No, exactly. I mean, even the building of the pyramids is not what they have tried to claim it is, because the tools that they quote unquote had available at that time would not have been able to function to build the pyramids.
And look what those things have survived. I mean, and not just probably one ice age, there's probably been more than that. I mean, some of these things have probably survived many catastrophes on this planet. And
yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. And, when we think about how we are today, this time period that we're in, for all of our quote-unquote high technology, for all of our iPhones and our computer systems and cars and planes and all of this kind of stuff, for all of the technology that we have, we truly are in a dark age, because we have no clue about who and what we are, or even where we came from. And those that do try to come up with a clue are so suppressed and held down and laughed at and killed. I mean, this is the height of insanity. It really is. I mean, the human race is just We're a race that has amnesia. That's to begin with. We're a race that has amnesia about our very origins. And because of that, because we have no connection with our pasts, with who or what we are, we're at a loss, and we're able to be controlled by those that do understand these things.
Yeah. Well, it goes without saying. I mean, there's just so much more to all this. I mean, Ryan and I, and Ira, you and I, we've all talked about this. These pyramids, no way were they built by the Egyptians. And here's another thing to throw in the mix here. If we could prove, now some of us, you don't have to really knock on the head too hard. Now others, you may. But if we could prove that there's also pyramids on Mars, I mean, can you imagine what does that mean? I mean,
well, it would be like the same implications that the sailing stones have to me. That there's just absolutely something fundamental missing about our history and our understandings. We have to really wipe and throw everything that we think we know out the window and begin again with this new information.
Exactly, and then we've got to be also careful of how much more will be suppressed. And I mean, because there's always going to be that group of people, even if we busted them today and shut them down, right? There would be some of them, just like with the Nazis and different things, that would be left over, and they'd be, if they could, they'd build it back up and do it again. So, it's really tough, because there's always going to be those out there who don't want that information out, because they know that the knowledge is very much power.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys heard of the shoe prints that were found, and I think they were in the desert, the Gobi Desert?
Shoe prints, yeah, I did. I do remember something about that. I talked with a couple guests about that briefly, but refresh me though. But I think, was it in like on a mountain or something? There was it used to be a mud print, and it turned to like concrete or something.
I was in the fossilized prints. There was a ribbed sole shoe and a grid pattern shoe sole that were found fossilized in sandstone.
Did they say Nike?
I joked about that when I first learned this. They did not say Nike, but they donated Nike, or donated. They predated Nike by about 12 million years, though, guys. 12 million years.
Yeah, see, this is one of those things that I have had a deep attraction to through many years. The out of place artifacts, the OOP arts.
Well, guys, we got two options to this now. This 12 million year old footprint. Either somebody's doing some time travel, or we go back more than 12 million years.
Yeah, exactly. One of the finds that has been done, for instance, is that in strata of coal, when coal miners go in to do the digging through the different stratas of coal, they have found different artifacts embedded in the coal stratums, the coal lodes that just do not belong there in any way.
You're talking about the one in Nevada, right?
There's been multiples of them, but I think the one in Nevada, that one is the hammer, isn't it?
I don't know if that's what it's called.
Or is that the pickaxe or something along those lines?
The one I saw in Nevada, I think, is the one Michael was actually thinking of. It was kind of it was a sole imprint of a shoe.
Yeah.
It was in like it looked like a mud puddle or something, but it was fossilized. It was over 12 million years old.
There's that one. Yeah, they have found similar to looking like spark plugs. They found hammers.
Oh my God! Yeah, you're right, Ira. Yeah, there's been like literally spark plugs found.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Frank Joseph Hoff said that they've actually found, which of course is locked away. They don't want no one to know, but they're not him himself, but those who have been doing this and suppressing this actually found evidence that they had computers.
Yes, exactly.
So
exactly.
So
these coal stratas, they go back millions of years. I mean, hundreds of thousands to millions of years. These stratas need to take to form, and the depths at which they're sitting. Geologically speaking, these things are so deep and so embedded into the strata that it would have taken millions of years for that sediment to be put on top of it, and so on and so forth. So those things alone go far to proving that this stuff that we're talking about here is a reality, that we go back And if it's not we as Homo sapiens, maybe some other species, whatever, had existed in a previous civilization here, at least that far back.
And Donna had a question too, if I could throw that out there, and so it's to all of us. Do you think that the Neanderthal man be the lesser species that Casey talked about, and they were brought to different areas when Atlantis went down?
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Okay, read me the question one more time so I can get a
she said,
understanding.
and basically she says, do we think that the Neanderthal man would be the lesser species that Edgar Casey talked about, and the ones that were brought to different areas when Atlantis went down?
Oh, that's kind of like, I don't know if she's ever read the Terra Papers. It kind of reminds me of that, how the this type of a hybridized human animal creature was kind of taken to different parts of the Earth. I'm not exactly sure, Adana. All I can tell you, because I don't have a firm grip of all of the past different levels of ways in which we've evolved over so many hundreds of thousands of years.
You got to get a PhD then.
I'd need to. I probably need to go work on that, guys. After the show, I'll start my thesis. I don't know. I think that there's some type of credence to that. I don't know if it's like a literal taking of a type of primitive human species to different parts of the Earth, or it's just sort of how life evolved. I mean, you could kind of look at it like this: whether it was spores that were that later evolved to become humans that were confined in large tracts of ice that eventually melted after the Ice Age, that were brought here from comets and asteroids from millions and millions of years ago, spores from different locations that might be a little bit different than others, and that they all developed in certain regions of the Earth differently. Of course, environmental conditions come in to play. Depending on where you're located, of course, you're going to develop differently. If you grow a species in very cold, dangerous climates as opposed to subtropical climates, they're going to be a little bit different. So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I think it's a possibility. If this was MythBusters, I'd say plausible.
Well, I'll give you my take on it if you guys don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay, so here's how I look at things, and I'm going to kind of place things like you do, Ryan. I try to look as much scientifically as I can at things, without falling into my brain fell out because I'm looking at it with too much scientific credence. Anyway,
yeah, keep the brain inside, Ira.
Yeah, exactly. So here's some of the things that could add to the question. Okay. We know that during the time period of Sumer, for instance, some of the different writings that they did, and I'm not going to go with Sitchin type style of things here because these are different translations than what Sitchin himself said. I don't put a whole lot of credence into Sitchin entirely. Let me just put it that way. But that being said, one thing that the Sumerians had to say is that there was a race of people that were created by the Anunnaki that were in the southeast portion of the area, of Sumer, and that would have been Africa. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't really want to interrupt you here, but I do want to interject that is exactly what I'm talking about with the Terra Papers and what you're talking about with the Sumerians. You're absolutely right. There was a form of humanoid that was genetically engineered per se, that was discussed in many ancient texts. So that's exactly the point that I was on as well. But go ahead.
Okay, so when you think about that, the what they described was the black-skinned, black-haired people during that time period that were there in Africa, and they were considered to be created separately by the Anunnaki as a working class, essentially, or as a working being, essentially. The others were created differently. Now, you combine those two facts, or that fact, with the fact also that through genetic research, what has been found is that those who are of direct genetic ancestry to those who have come out of Africa, in other words, no other, pure African blood, I guess you could say, have no Neanderthal DNA within them, but anybody who is descended from anywhere in Europe has Neanderthal DNA in their genetic makeup. You combine those two things together and it starts really kind of, I think, opening up an even deeper question as to whether or not the Sumerians actually were telling the truth with these things, which I do believe that they were. My thought is that as far as everything is concerned, just to get to my basic kind of belief structure of things, I think that what has happened in our past is that there was a species that was here that basically had been evolving on the planet to become like the dominant bipedal species, I guess you could say, here on the planet. Something ended up occurring, whether it's through cosmic catastrophe or through volcanic catastrophe, whatever the case may be, that species was greatly diminished. And I think that species might have been Neanderthal. That was what that breed was. And I think that also, if you want to go with the Bigfoot idea, I think that they are kind of like maybe an offshoot of that as well. But that human beings, basically Homo sapiens, have been I guess hybridized out of the Neanderthal DNA combining with somebody else's DNA, whether that was an alien species or what have you, I don't know for sure, but some kind of technology was involved in creating this different species that is now known as us, Homo sapiens sapien. And so that kind of, I guess, is my take on this idea that Adana says, as far as Edgar Casey was concerned, this lesser race, I guess you could say, would be the actually us, essentially, that we kind of were created to become this different race. So that's my take on it.
And Michael, before you go, I just wanted to put a side dish next to what Ira just served up there, and that is, Ira, you mentioned black people, and if you look at the Olmec civilization, have you seen some of these sculptures, the big Olmec heads?
Yes, they are very African in nature, and there was no way, at least according to modern scientific interpretation, that those people in South America would have had any kind of interaction with Africans and those that have that, African look to them, basically.
And they did, and the Olmecs were in the very lowest parts of south central Mexico, and they predated the Mayans and the Aztecs. So yes. This was also a culture where archaeologists have discovered, I don't think they were paintings, they were more like carvings of these beings kind of depicted in an underground setting, and they had some type of object in their hand, and there was a beam coming out of the object striking a rock, and on top of their heads they had a very, maybe it's just from the way that we've been raised and the way that we grew up, we look at it and we kind of, we kind of see faces and things. Maybe it's the same thing when we look at these renderings, artistic renderings of what these people carved or depicted. It almost looks as if these beings have a type of like hard hat on their head with a light, like a coal miner. Have you seen some of these depictions, guys?
I haven't, but what I can say is that I don't believe for a minute that we eventually walked out of the ocean and grew legs, and it's just like they try to say that we would evolve like this whole mermaid thing that was on the Animal Planet a while back, and their guess was that man eventually went out into the waters and grew fins or whatever. Look, if I go out in the water, the human species is not going to evolve. I'm going to drown. That's what's going to happen. I'm not going to grow fins. I'm not going to grow gills. So I don't believe for a minute that they came out of the water and any of that happened either. I think that there was a form of human here, and I think that it was altered. I think that it was tampered with. Look at our race now. Look at who the human race is now. And look at these psychos that are running it. You tell me if they didn't found a planet in our solar system that had a bunch of Neanderthals on it, you tell me that these laboratory suits, these gods in long white coats wouldn't head there to experiment like hell.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at the human genome, for instance, our chromosomal structure, one of our chromosomes is fused to another at basically a right angle, and that does not happen in nature. We're the only species that has occurred with. How did that happen? It doesn't happen in nature, you see? It just is there.
So I think that there was some tampering going on. I mean, does life form? Yeah, I mean, it forms, I guess, over millions of years. It could, the way they describe in a sense, but as far as us, starting out in the ocean and coming onto land, and then all these phases of monkeys, but oops, one's missing. We'll call that the missing link. Oh, and this over
it's
here,
just like junk DNA.
Yeah,
it's just like junk parts of the brain.
Yeah, that's just junk DNA. In other words, we don't want to tell you about that shit. So
right, exactly. It's like the idea. Listen, here's how I put it. I think that DNA. We and the great unwashed masses, we're not told everything that's relating to what DNA really is. I think that there are people out there that do know it, but that kind of we're not. We're not.
I think it's a complex biological hard drive, Ira.
Yes, exactly. I think what DNA is, it contains all of the potential information for what life could be like if this environment is this way, then this type of life is going to be existent in that area. You take, for instance, at the North Pole and at the South Pole, there is a type of prawn that is within the ocean waters there. Deep, cold, deep water prawns, right? Little shrimps. These can only survive in the environment that they have been growing in. Right? That's the only place that they can live. If you were to put them into warmer water, they would die. They would not be able to survive. Well, you have them at both the North and the South Pole. So if evolution works the way that they say that it works, we would not see those two species that are exactly duplicate, 100% equal, that they're duplicates. You could not get them from the North Pole to the South Pole so that they could begin to propagate in the other pole, basically, without them dying on the way there. So how, in the realm of possibility, in the current idea of what science has told us is the potential, or what the truth is regarding evolution and how it happens and all of this kind of stuff, how exactly does that situation fit into what the claims are? It can't. It's impossible to do.
And we'll pick up on this after the break, because we've got to take one. We're overdue. So hold on, everybody. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I've got Ira Robinson and Ryan Gable with me. We are discussing the origins of man. You're welcome to call in at 803-317-2264. We'll be back in just a few minutes, everyone. Don't go anywhere. The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com. LNM Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at LNM Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering LNM Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the right-hand side of Late Night in the Midlands to receive your special offer today. Looking to advertise to a large worldwide audience, but at an affordable price? Contact the station at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com and tell us what you're looking for, and we can make it happen. That's mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
Hello, this is Lisa Marie, here to tell you about Oxy Silver, legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen Oxy Silver and Oxy Silver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. More advice, all these products and more are available from CureShop.com, including Oxy Silver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol, electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. Oxy Silver is covalently bonded to water, unlike any other silver product, using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently bonded silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. Oxy Silver works 3 ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risks. Oxy Silver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy Oxy Silver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy Oxy Silver, GI Flora Pro, 528 Superfood, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. Cure Shop. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
In many cases is the idea that the aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves. They're interested in our DNA, our genetic makeup.
For 15 years, I've been obsessed to find out what was going on inside of him. It's been my life work and my ultimate failure. This force, this thing that lived inside of him came from a source too violent, too deadly for you to imagine. It grew inside him, contaminating his soul. It was pure evil.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Detach from station and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom.
is exactly what we're trying to do here, is guide the capsule. Because it needs to be guided. We've got to put truth back in talk radio. It's very important. So we put together a nice bunch of hosts here to do just that, and we're still looking for more. So if you think that you are a good fit for the LNM Radio Network and truth is your agenda, then come on aboard. Give me an email at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com and send me at least 30 minutes so I could take a listen to what we're getting into. So, guys, we're back. The website's latenightinthe.midlands.com. Go on over, become a member. You can go join the chat room. You could donate. You could subscribe. By the way, Tommy, thank you for your donation. We appreciate that. And, the call-in number, 803-317-2264. So, gentlemen, we are back. And so have any of you evolved since we talked last?
A little bit. I don't know.
I'm functioning with cellular mitosis here, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, for a very long time, millions of years, the flea has been the same. I mean, it's not changed. It's still biting you, and it's still just a little pest, right?
I know your pain. Every time I've had a pet that's had fleas, I'm the one that they feast on. They're just the carriers for the fleas. They come to me.
Oh, yeah, and then you don't know they could be genetically modified fleas, and good Lord, if that happens, here comes the plague.
A fruit fly has more DNA active than human beings do.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at before the break was that when it comes to this DNA structure, when it comes to all of this life, the way that life evolves, all of that kind of stuff, we're really being lied to about it all. There was an experiment that was done just to throw this out there. There was an experiment that was done on DNA and how it works, and one of the things that was found was that if you take fish eggs and have them like each set of fish eggs basically growing in a different time period. So one of them being a week old, one of them 2 weeks old, one of them 3 weeks old, that sort of thing. The ones that are older, for instance, will actually essentially take the energy from the younger ones and grow a lot faster. And it'll wither the younger ones down basically until they're dead, and the older ones basically now have all of the energy of that younger crowd. And that's how life works.
Well, that's like the queen drinking the baby's blood, right?
Yeah, exactly what it is.
Blood regenerates. Blood is rejuvenating. It regenerates cells and organs in the body.
Oh,
The blood of remember that study from the University of Stanford? They found that blood from younger mice injected into older mice reverses the aging process, and I think that has a lot to do with things like communion, esoterically and literally the consumption of blood, be it that it contains the life force, and by drinking the blood of Christ, eating his flesh, you shall have eternal life, both literally and figuratively, scientifically and esoterically. It makes a lot of sense to me, at least when I study that. Ira, you were talking about these organisms living on the North and South Pole, right?
Yeah, the specifically the type of shrimp or prawn that is within those two areas.
What's really incredible is that we have an understanding that is so minuscule about the way in which life forms, and life in general, the way in which life forms and life forms, thinking that certain life can only exist in this one specific condition, and then we find it existing in all kinds of different conditions, and we find life that exists in pools of radioactive sludge where humans would die almost instantly. We find bacteria that can withstand radiation 3,000 times more than humans. We find bacteria and algae on the outside of the International Space Station last year, and it's thriving. It's not dead in the dark, cold abyss that is space. It's alive. Life flourishes in many different ways, and we have such a very distorted and restricted way in which we view life. And I think that there's a lot of people that simply because they're lazy, because their religions don't permit it, and because they just simply don't want to believe it or want to think the extra couple of minutes to be able to put together 2 and 2, And it's because of that laziness and because of those preconditioned beliefs that our understandings of nature, our understandings of the ways in which we've come to be, has been really distorted and twisted, and why we've lost so much information. I don't even think it's really a conspiracy. I think it's really a lack of intuitive thought. It's a lack of critical thinking, and that's partially been engineered into us for other reasons. And this is a consequence of those actions and of that programming, is that we've lost so much information. I mean, we've been fed so much crap about evolution. I was thinking of an analogy to go along with this, and it would be like, you know, if you stand under a basketball hoop and you sit there and you just, you know, you lay the ball in 50 times and you're 50 out of 50. And then you got another guy who stands behind the three-point line and he nails 20 out of 20 from the three-point line. Even if you're 20 or you're 50 out of 50 and the other guy's 20 out of 20 from long range, if to use a basketball analogy, the guy that was able to put the ball in the net that far out, was it 27 something feet for like professional basketball in the NBA, he's got a little more talent, I think, than it does to take to stand underneath the hoop and just throw the ball in. And when we look at evolution, it's like they're just running layups. They give us all of these really easy, simple things that are provable and that are real and that are the truth. So we see those and we think, well, you know, they were right about that. I understand that. And then they start talking in a complex language that we don't understand, and they really don't understand it either. They just like using fancy terms to make us feel insufficient and feel inferior, while they feed their ego and their superiority complex. And then they start talking about their theories as if they're facts. And because they don't understand that missing link, and they don't understand the junk DNA, and they don't understand the 90% of the brain that's not fully functioning the ways in which we would typically believe that it would be functioning, they start to make up all of this stuff. And because they stood there and they made the layups all day, we take that to be talent, we take that to be intelligence, and we think that everything they say must be accurate. When you have other people that are standing out at the three-point line knocking down shots, that's where the real talent is, and we're not looking at them because they only made a couple of shots. This other guy over here, he's got a bunch of information. He must be right. He looks official.
Yeah, it's like to use a military analogy, it's the difference between somebody standing there with a machine gun spraying and praying and hitting you once with a bullet out of 200 shots,
and
shot. a sniper from a mile away taking you out with one shot. It's the same kind of analogy, you know. The guy that takes that sniper shot, I think, is more dangerous than the guy that's just sitting there spraying and praying. You know, one other set of experiments that was done, just to toss this out and get into the topic a little bit deeper as well, is that in Russia, there was some experimentation that was done on like DNA and how it's formed and all of this kind of stuff. One experiment that they did was they took beach sand and they sanitized it basically as much as they could, and then they took distilled water, which, you know, is sanitized. There's nothing in it besides just pure H2O, and they combined the two together and they superheated it, and it was superheated basically to the point of like almost sun kind of heat, you know, just really huge amount of heat. Nothing could survive this, at least as far as we're aware. When everything cooled off, what they found was that on top of the water and within the water, they were able to skim away material that was alive. It was little, you know, microscopic critters, and there was like this foamy kind of substance that was on the top of it and everything. It was like almost like it spontaneously was created out of this combination between heat and water.
It's alive.
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, when you take that kind of an idea in your head, it's really easy to see how life basically could form just by the mechanism of meteorites coming into the surface of a planet, coming through the atmosphere. It gets superheated, you know, this silicate matter kind of thing gets superheated as it's coming through the atmosphere, impacts on the Earth, and the atmosphere, you know, if it contained any kind of H2O or anything along those lines, you know, the water vapor, it all is the same mechanism basically that's taking place. So that right there could be the formation of the basic molecules of life, you know, that spontaneously the DNA that is, I think, essentially everywhere is then using to say, okay, well, this this set of circumstances is here, so this type of life is going to form. Okay, well, now it's cold here, but it's, this certain temperature and this certain type of environmental pressures and all this kind of stuff. So this type of life form is going to evolve here, and so on and so forth,
I mean, look at the fundamental particles that make up reality. Look at quarks and leptons and the ways in which stardust is assembled. And if everything basically came out of stardust, even if you look at a very generalized, simple understanding of things like the Big Bang, not that I'm a huge proponent of it, but I think it has some type of merit to it, just like evolution has some type of merit to it, but I'm not a Darwinian subscriber. If you look at that and you think, well, if everything kind of evolved from that, and I don't mean in a Darwinian way, and that life on Earth evolved from that, and we look at one, what we could consider to be very lonely, distant planet in a very distant arm of the Milky Way galaxy, 100 billion light years across, hundreds and billions of planets and hundreds of billions of stars in just one small, significant yet insignificant galaxy, and there's the Earth. And on Earth there are hundreds of thousands of different flora and fauna, hundreds and thousands of different types of animals, and go back to dinosaurs, different species and different types of life forms that have existed just here on Earth. Now take that and apply it mathematically. You'd need a lot of zeros and you need a lot of lead in your pencil if you're going to write it down statistically, and the probability of how much life exists not only in the universe, but how many different forms of life exist in the universe dependent upon different types of conditions. Just here on Earth, life can exist in some of the harshest, most hazardous climates of the most extreme cold, the most extreme hot, and the most radioactive, and life can flourish more than anything that we can begin to imagine. Life exists elsewhere in the universe, both in microscopic form and I think in forms that far outweigh our imagination, to a point where we could go to another planet in another solar system and we might not even recognize what life is, because we don't have an idea or an imagination that could compensate for that.
And we could end up going on another planet and there could be dinosaurs running around on it.
You're right, there could be.
Absolutely.
And the other thing about that is when you get into things like dark energy, which is the expansion of the universe, this dark energetic force, dark matter material that in the universe that it's unseeable, and you combine that and you think there's something missing here, and you get into multiple dimensions, there could still be dinosaurs here on Earth in another dimensional form.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, maybe they went underground. You never know.
maybe, with some type of, I don't know what terms we could use to describe this, but some type of energetic phase shift from one dimension to another through some incredible cataclysm or something that's brought about by a higher intelligence, maybe even our own intelligence in a past ancient civilization. Perhaps that is what led to a disappearance of an ancient civilization, that it existed in another form, another dimension, and as Earth shifted from one dimension to another, perhaps a higher dimensional plane of existence, things on Earth changed a little bit. Or perhaps these monuments that stand the test of time were formed in another dimension where the laws of physics were completely different than we have today, that we believe we understand, and then they were phase shifted into this dimension. I don't know if you guys have any opinions or thoughts on that.
Oh, I absolutely think that is a possibility. I mean, look, I never put anything out of the realm of potentials, because we exist in such a chaotic universe that is yet still within a frame of order. That chaos basically is there to create every type of different experience that's possible to experience. I think totally that you're on track with this, because, look, even just within the realm of our senses alone, we don't see all of the frequencies that are possible to see. We don't hear all of the frequencies that are possible to hear. We don't exist within the frequencies that are possible to exist in.
If we could change our frequencies, we would probably get on that other side where we see Aunt Etta or whoever we would probably, if we could change our frequency, and I think that's what some real psychics are able to do, is they're able to connect on that frequency, and that's why they can see them or hear them. And I mean, I'm talking about real ones, and they exist. So
yeah, I mean, you could look at me for an example of that, Michael. I've been able to see ghosts. I can hear them. I can feel the emotions coming off of other people. It's like a radio signal that's coming off of them. I connect with people at a very base level. Like I get all of the information out of them if I really want to connect with them.
I bet you can tell when somebody has you can tell what someone's intentions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's easy to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that since I've been a child, too. I've had a lot of what might be considered paranormal experiences since I've been a child, and I was never a big proponent of exploring those until about 7 or 8 years ago, when I really started to begin my evolution, if you will, spiritually into what has become today the radio show and the books and talking with you guys. And all of those experiences led me to an understanding, not something that I can sit down and prove in a college thesis and get a white lab coat and get my PhD and hang it up on the wall with, but stuff that I can have that experience, never tell anybody about it, and then talk to somebody like you, Ira, who's had the exact same experience, and without telling you anything, you can describe your experience to me, and it is identical to the experiences that I've had. That is when you know that there's something much more significant going on, and that there is more than just a little bit of credibility to what we're saying.
The key is listening to that knowing. You know somebody's not genuine, and sometimes we don't take our own advice. We don't listen to ourselves. I've made that mistake often. So, I think we have that intuition within us all. I know I do. And I could usually get a sense if somebody's a rotten apple just the first 5 minutes I'm with them.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, isn't that the whole? Excuse me. Isn't that the whole point of like social engineering and cultural and social manipulation is what we have today. Everybody has that ability to do that, but what we've done is that through television programming and through newsprint and through entertainment and so many different forms, we've convinced people and planted these seeds of doubt, seeds of deception, if you will, where people constantly question themselves. And when that little voice tells them to do something, they've been trained to believe that little voice is the route of insanity. So they don't listen to it.
And when that Glenn Kennedy came and visited me a few years back, I had a funny feeling. I don't know, it just didn't feel right. Actually, I don't know. He felt like he should have been wearing a white collar or something. It just something wasn't right about the guy. I'm telling you. And he had a really big interest in Autumn's daughter. And trying to find, are you a psychic? And having her take these psychic tests. And I'm like, where'd this guy come from? Yeah, oops.
At least you did it tonight. It wasn't me.
It was me. Yeah. Sometimes I get talking about these people. They bring the worst out of you.
They do.
Yeah, some of the worst experiences of my life have been when I did not follow my intuition about things, and I've got a very finely honed intuition. You guys are right with it. I mean, everybody is born with this stuff, and I think that this actually really is part of the issue as well in relation to our origins of where we come from, of who we are, of what we are. The very what we are, it has been hidden from us because they disconnect us from this empathic emotions. They disconnect us from these abilities that we have through their social engineering and through their social programming, and it becomes to a point where people laugh at you when you say, "Oh yeah, I can do this stuff," and they go, "You're full of crap. How can you say that?" And it's like, look, you have not lived my life. Shut up. You're not me. I know what I know. I've been able to do this since I was young. So you can't, where do you get off telling me that I'm lying or whatever,
Well, that's why you don't worry about what other people think. That's like when I tell my story, any various one of them, I'm not telling them because I want people to believe me. I could give a damn if you believe me. I know it happened, and people want you to share those things, so I share them. But I'm not doing it because I want anyone to believe that there's weird craft in the sky. I'm not doing it because I want anyone to believe that there's bad entities that are in a dimension that we can't see. and that they try to do things to harm you because it's true, because it happened to me. And then there's good ones too. So there's all kinds of these unknowns. I can't explain it all. I can only explain what happened. Like if we were to write all this stuff down 2,000 years from now, somebody would open that and they would look at it, and it'd be my interpretation, but it probably would mean something totally different to them.
Well, right. That's right. But you also have to take into account a couple of things. And the first one is, remember that analogy I always gave, Michael? I think you were the one that always liked this, about Harry Potter.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the Harry Potter analogy is the best analogy. And what I always said is that, maybe J.K. Rowling, she comes to this bookstore in London, or maybe she comes to the U.S. and she signs all of the Harry Potter books. And, the store manager of this small bookstore, he's so happy. He doesn't even want to put them on display. He puts them in the safe to keep them, protected and make sure that nobody steals them or, destroys them. So after he does this, there's some type of catastrophic event that happens, an asteroid, an outbreak of disease. Something happens that life as we know it basically ends. And over time, the structures of society, bridges and roads and buildings, they begin to break down, and things just, kind of disappear back into the annexes of time. And a couple million years later, let's say, archaeologists from another planet, or maybe archaeologists from another strand of species of humans that's evolved over time, they start doing some digging, and they find this safe, and they find it on a type of lettering. It says, let's say, Barnes & Noble. And they don't really know what that means, but they just know that it's some type of weird lettering. And they go inside of this structure, this temple, they believe, where we worship with our scrolls. And they find this safe where, of course, the most important information was housed in the center. And they take these out, and they see that they find somebody who can somewhat loosely translate the information. And all of a sudden, they start believing that we were wizards, and that we were witches, and that we worshipped in a temple called B&N, and that we had temples that were called Hogwarts. And now it's like the Odyssey, it's like Homer, it's like Troy. Now they start searching the whole world for this mystical place known as Hogwarts, and they start looking for remnants of robes and cloaks and the invisibility cloak, and they look for wands and all these magical instruments.
And that's so true, and that's a point that I make. And people, you can't say that can't happen, or maybe hasn't happened. You can't. It could have. That's why I want to play a good one, before I die, and I better get busy here. But before I die, I want to go ahead and get something that'll survive the test of time and bury it as deep as I can. And I want to make some kooky stuff. And my only hope is that 2,000 years from now, the new civilization finds it.
They find it, yeah.
Maybe my show will live on forever. They'll be going and worshipping late night in the Midlands.
All hail Michael Vera.
All hail the shield.
The LNM
All
temple.
Hail the shield.
Yeah, they'll say Michael and his angels. There'll be the Ira angel and the Ryan angel and the Riscala angel.
I don't know. Some people think of me as the devil. So
well, you may be.
Yeah, I think one of Ira, you or I might be the devil. One of us probably got to be the devil. Which in the Harry Potter scenario, Harry Potter might become Jesus, the sun god. And Lord Voldemort might become like Yahweh, the name that may not be named, the name that is not said in Harry Potter. Lord Voldemort becomes the devil. I mean, it's like the same exact thing. Think about it, like literally, Voldemort. What do they say in the movie? You shall not say his name, which is exactly in Hebrew what you're not supposed to say in terms of Yahweh.
They don't even spell it out.
You don't spell it out. Yeah. It's just a description of an entity. You're not supposed to say his name.
Well, and a lot of them don't even say the word God. Or type the word God, for instance. They'll just type G*D. They don't even say. They don't even type God as a great example.
Only this time it started in the Garden of Hemp.
That's right. Hey, you guys, did you hear about the skeleton? This was many years ago that was found in Italy. It was a very similar skeleton to our modern Homo sapien skeletons, and it was found to date back over 10 million years. Remembering, modern humans supposedly came about around 400,000 years ago. This dated 10 million years ago.
That's a long time.
So, I mean, and that's not as far back as the footprints in the coal or the desert rather, and the one in a coal seam in Nevada that were found to date 12 to 12.5 million years ago. I mean, no matter how you shave that down, you could say, oh, it's overestimated. Okay, let's take 6 million years off. We're still 6 million years, roughly 6 million years past what conventional history tells us. I mean, hell, I could shave 90% of that estimate off, and we'd still be far surpassing what modern science and history tells us.
Precisely. It's a ridiculous situation that we find ourselves in as human beings in this modern society. Again, like I said, we're in the dark ages with all of this stuff.
You know what we should do, guys, one night here? We should do another round table. Well, a triangle table is what we're doing, because we need 4 to make it round, don't we? Or 6?
Yeah.
But anyways, we have
a trinity now.
We should go ahead and look up the textbooks that these kids are going through now, the history books and the science books, and we should go through some of them, and we should point out the mistakes.
Hey, that's an interesting concept, Michael. You know, I worked at a Barnes and Noble college. Did I tell you guys that?
Not sure.
I was about a year ago. I worked at a Barnes and Noble college, and I didn't do much because it was a small college and it was affiliated with Barnes and Noble. I basically just kind of stocked the shelves with books, and of course, you know, whether it was mythology books or I had to sit down and I had to look through some of the books and do some reading. And I remember there was a history section, and I'm a huge history fan, so I thought, you know what, just like you said, Michael, let me go check these books out. And I went through the history book, and I don't know, this was in Florida. It was at a smaller college. It wasn't a community college. It was like a state college, but it wasn't, you know, too large. And this is the books, the standardized textbooks they were giving out. There was an entire section, and I'm not joking about this. I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling you 100% this is what was in the book. There was an entire section in this book. It looked and read like a propaganda poster from Germany in 1932, 1933. It was the most ridiculous thing about 9/11 that I think I've ever seen in my life. It basically said that, just like the standard line that we were told, George W. Bush is a hero. He saved America from the terrorist threat. I mean, like he's he's a damn superhero or something. Like, you know, he went to the phone booth and changed real quick, and then he defeated Al Qaeda. That's literally how the textbooks were.
And then they what they did was, then Bush's era ended, so they changed the superhero, and they said, well, let's make him black now, and we'll get more people on board. And so that's what they did. So now it's Obama, and he single-handedly took bin Laden down.
Yep.
Yeah, he got bin Laden, and I don't know.
Posed for a photo shoot at the White House.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they just, all they've done is change the skin color of the superhero. And more people, what that did was that put a big spike in the spokes for people who were getting on board. You know, it kind of threw a lot of people off because, you know, they wanted the first black president because they didn't know that we already had one before.
Yeah, that's true too. Mr. Hayes, I think is how you pronounce his name. You know, what is really, really fascinating to me, guys, is that when we talk about this subject, we talked about the origins of humanity. In the past, people have told me, well, you know, those shoe prints that were found in the desert, those sole prints that were found in a Nevada coal seam, you know, and the skeleton that was found in Italy, these might be made up. These might be fabricated, you know, kind of like Bigfoot evidence. And I say, well, okay, maybe you have a point there. But the problem with that is, if it was made up and it was promoted just to spread disinformation, then I think more people would, first of all, know about it, and it would be much more widespread. It would be in your history books if it was there to promote a disinformation. If it was there to spread disinformation, we'd all know about it. We'd hear about it all the time. The fact that it's covered up and they have the evidence simply means that it's being covered up for a purpose, for a reason, to keep it from us rather than to give us this information, to spread disinformation. It tells me it's not disinformation, it's the truth.
Well, I'm kind of curious, in other countries like Germany and Russia, do their history textbooks, do they say, hey, we were the bad guys? Because that's what America says, right?
Well, you know what? I don't know. I actually I taught a real estate class a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys knew that. And a lot of people from the real estate class came from, I mean, they were in Orlando, Florida, but they moved from all over the world. I mean, a lot of them came from Brazil, and a lot of them were from Russia. And of course, state-sponsored propaganda in any country is going to try to make, like, let's say the Russians are going to try to do whatever they can to make the Americans look bad. But the fact is, these Russian men and women that came here and took the class they could speak English. I'd have conversations with them, and on more than one occasion, guys, both men and women, they were highly intelligent, old and young, and understood exactly what took place on 9/11. I mean, they described it to me. It was almost like listening to Alex Jones yell, baby. They just described in detail the deception that was had on the American people. And I had people even from the UK that I talked to that were in that class, and they told me the exact same thing. And they have very much a full awareness of American history. I just think that they probably don't have much of an awareness of their own history and the corruption of their government, but they sure as hell know about our corruption in our government.
Absolutely. And guys, let's take our last break tonight and come back, and I'd like to talk about how different parts of the world are gearing up for what looks like war to me. And I thought maybe we could get into that a little. We're talking about the origins of man. Well, has it stopped in the past because of what they're doing now? I mean, have these things repeated themselves? They just may have. But guys, hang on for a moment. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera with Ryan Gable and Ira Robinson. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Looking to advertise to a large worldwide audience, but at an affordable price? Contact the station at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com and tell us what you're looking for, and we can make it happen. That's mv@latenightinthemidlands.com.
LNM Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at LNM Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering LNM Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the home page or the chat and listen page and have peace of mind that no matter what happens, your family is protected. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Want to be a guest on LateNightInTheMidlands.com? Well, you don't have to have the big name and the big books and, of course, the movies and videos. All you need to do is contact me at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. Tell me what you got to offer, and let's see if we can make this thing happen. Again, that's mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. Hello, this is Michael Vera here to tell you about Oxy Silver, legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. NASA originally developed covalently bonded silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. Oxy Silver works 3 ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything. far better than the leading silver products and without any risks. Oxy Silver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthyworldaffiliates.com, 4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com, 4948. And buy Oxy Silver and other great products and package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy Oxy Silver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's, CureShop.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Good evening and welcome to a segment called Self-Proclaimed. We want an answer, so we reached out to known self-proclaimed experts to answer our questions. Why are we here and what is our future? Let's go to Peter first.
By using Bible prophecy, we get our answers.
Dimensions, the alpha speed, alpha and theta, alpha level and beta level, dreams, alpha.
Okay, and Geoff, what about you, my friend?
The vision of Jesus in front of me consciously spoke to me, and I've come to awaken you to what you chose to come back and do.
Glenn Kennedy, how about you, son?
No, we've got to follow the Bible as far as not promoting stuff, because what God said about the psychics is no matter what, they are a doorway into the dark side, and the demons follow them big time. Hell, don't ignore me, because once you go on and once
oh my. Dr. Big Pharma Pill Popper Mind Warp Conspiracy Theorist Zombie, what says you? All right, ninth grade dropout. You have not said a word. Now, what do you think?
I think for myself, and I listen more than I speak. My doctor says I should be on medication. I do, however, listen to Late Night in the Midlands.
Okay. Well, he certainly is not someone we want to listen to. That's all the time we have today. Remember, if you're not a self-proclaimed expert, then you really don't know a damn thing. This message brought to you by the makers of aspartame and by GMO. Feeding the world its last meal. It's not what you can do for humanity, but what humanity can do for you.
That's the only way we're going to turn this thing around, I'm afraid, is to take it to the streets. I just don't see any other way. I mean, it's just happening full-fledged. You see all these military operations going on, and my guest the other night said that, when he was in the military, it was common to do these exercises. That's great, but with everything that we know and the way they're doing it, they're not just doing it here, but you see it in Britain, Russia, Switzerland, you name it. They're all Indonesia, the Pakistan, and so many others, Iran and Israel, and I mean everybody's doing all these trainings. North Korea, South Korea, China. I mean, they're building their military arsenal big time. So I mean, what is all this building up for?
Anybody? Well, my take on things. I hate to do it, but in order to talk about this topic, we really do have to talk a little bit about religion, because religion is kind of where all of this is based from. A lot of the ideologies that are going on with it all are related to the religion.
Well, that's what's used, the religion, but it's the greed that's powering it.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. The religion is only there as the surface excuse. There's a lot more that's deeper to it, and that's the unfortunate thing that the mainstream media does with all of this, is they just focus on the one and only thing. They talk about, it's the extremist Muslims, and it's the extremist Christians, and it's the extremist Buddhists, and on and on and on, which, yes, there are extremist Buddhists as well. But you wouldn't think so, but there are. Anyways, so, between all of that, the only ones that they talk about is in the context of religion. And there is that there, yes, but a lot of it does go a lot deeper than that. What we have going on, though, on the surface excuse of things, is that all of this stuff that's going on is a blood war between all of these different brothers that are arguing against each other over my God is better than your God, my daddy can beat your daddy up. That's essentially what it comes down to, and is about as pedantic of an argument as it can get. But the basic, the more core reasons are, yes, most definitely to move the resources, I think, from one power base, which is the West currently, into the next power base, which is the East. And I think this is just kind of the excuse that's being used to get it to happen.
I think my answer is, it would be, if I explained it in detail, it would be in agreement with Ira, and I'm sure probably with whatever you say, Michael, we're usually always on the same page. But my answer is probably going to be much shorter, and I'll just sum it up like this. I think that human beings, even though we are extremely intelligent, you have to compare that intelligence to something. We really don't have anything to compare our intelligence with except computer systems, I think, and supercomputers and artificial brains. So compared to that, we're not that intelligent. And I think in the grand scheme of things, although we might be necessary for some part of the evolutionary food chain, if you will, we are also insignificant. And when we look at what we've done to a beautiful planet like Earth, what we've done with pollution and with the murdering of each other, what we've done to this gift of life, is that we have spit in the face of it. We have just destroyed everything that's been given to us. Humanity, even though we could kind of tell this beautiful story, and I think it deserves to be told, humanity does not deserve this planet the way that we act. There are some people like us and like a lot of the listeners who are here for different reasons, and we realize all of this. But all of this conflict, constant conflict, and conflict a lot of the time because of what you said, Ira, my God's better than your God. My dad can beat your dad up. This constant bickering, this is not of an intelligent species. This is of a very primitive, warlike, rigid belief system kind of grunting caveman type of society and culture that we live in. I try to separate myself as much as possible away from that. If you look at the way that a lot of all you have to do is go to the mall, go to a restaurant, go to a local retail store. Look how young men and young women act. Look at the way. Look at how archaic it is. Look at how structurally unstable it is in terms of building a complex society. They're acting in a very animalistic and primitive way.
They're like honey badgers. They don't give a shit.
Yes, I knew you were going to bring that up. Yeah, you're right.
They don't.
We have right now the slap-a-hoe generation. That is the generation that's out there right now, and they've actually said that chivalry is rape.
Wait,
I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
Did you say slap-a-hoe?
Yeah, it's the slap-a-hoe. The slap-a-hoe generation. Yeah, that's what I call it.
Oh my God!
I had to make sure that's what he said. Well, no, you're right. I heard that you and your brother talking about this on Brothers at Arms the other day.
And that's not even funny.
These feminist people, they want to make farting, flatulence, rape.
Yes.
I mean, the mentality of the people that consider themselves feminists, the mentality of these people that, and Michael, you've said it before, and I agree with you, if someone believes in some higher energetic life form deity in a general context, and they believe that by going to church they're doing the right thing, and they actually help people. They use their beliefs to spread good, and they don't force it on anybody. As long as you don't force it, and as long as you don't infringe upon my rights to not have to listen to that garbage, then I'm okay with what you're doing. But the people that have beliefs, and I'm not talking just religious, I'm talking political beliefs, cultural beliefs, beliefs in basically anything, history, science, and they hold on to it so dearly that they are ready to fight somebody to defend those beliefs, beliefs of which they probably cannot really provide any evidence to show that what they believe is even slightly accurate, and yet they will fight to defend it.
Well, nowadays,
if you take that,
I was just going to say, nowadays, Ryan, the youth today, they'll fight just to be on a YouTube video.
Well, that's, you know what, there's so many different ways we could take this. You're right, that's another thing in and of itself. You get people that are beat up on the side of the street, and instead of like the Good Samaritan, you've got people taking out their video cameras and filming it, waiting for the fight to be over, and maybe they'll call the cops if the video uploads to YouTube in time. Then they have time to open their phone up and call 911. They'd rather video it because who's going to be more popular? Who's going to get the hits on YouTube? It's not going to be you. I've got an iPhone. I'm going to do it quicker than your Samsung Galaxy. And it's all about identifying with these artificial groups and these artificial labels, this tribalism in both. And Michael, I know you're a huge football fan. I'm a huge hockey fan. And yet, we can enjoy those sports and still come and do this radio show. We are not so invested in them that we can't think about anything else, that we center our entire lives around Sunday afternoon, around that particular sport.
That's right. And I feel like I deserve, and I don't even rest a full day. I watch probably, 3 games a week, if that. And 2 of them are usually on Sunday. Sometimes all 3 of them are. And so, and then when the game's over, I get back to work and I get ready for Monday.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't sit there and dwell on it. I'm not painting my face and running out and beating up a Redskins fan because his team beat my team. I'm not going that far, but there are people who, I've been at a Buffalo Bills game back in the 90s, and I remember these poor Patriot fans were sitting in the stands and they wouldn't stop. And you should be allowed to cheer for your team, right? But there's one guy who's getting all emotional. You don't know what it's like to be a Bills fan and lose 4 Super Bowls. And I'm thinking, damn, calm down, dude. It's just a game. And so the Patriot fan told him it's just a game. He didn't want to hear that. He charged him. He's throwing punches at both of them. And, in the end result, he got arrested, and because he's a stupid idiot. I mean, you're going to throw punches for... because somebody's rooting for their team, you got issues. I mean, you're like a product of Big Pharma. Your parents were.
Right, but see, that's exactly what we have happening with the whole situation in the world right now, with this big ball of wax that we're doing, with the wars going on and the arguments that are breaking out and all of this kind of stuff. That's just the next stage of that exact same type of mentality. It's just one step further.
And listen, George Carlin, I think, was right when he said that war is just a bunch of prick waving. If you look back at the Desert Storm, the goal. Remember, what did he say? That who were the 3 men behind that war? Dick Cheney, Colin Powell, and George Bush. They're all sexually related.
Exactly.
And it's all the missiles are shaped like penises, aren't they?
So are their heads.
Exactly.
But to go back and to answer your question, Michael, just if you go, I worked at a retail store just until recently. Some of you might have known this, and to watch kids come in on Friday night, to watch these kids and to see how primitive and how they all act with this kind of mentality of following the alpha male. And we hear that evolution, survival of the fittest. Well, it might be survival of the fittest, but some of the fittest, most attractive women in a attractive men are the dumbest animals on the planet. So it's not evolving humanity forward in any type of intellectual way at all, and it's just a bunch of I think it's just a bunch of crap. It doesn't actually make any sense if you start to put it in context with what it's supposed to mean in terms of things like evolution. So if you relate that and how, some guy at a football game, like you say, Michael, all he has to do is say you don't know what it's like, and a Patriot fan says, man, it's just a game, and he charges him and attacks him. These are two guys that probably have hardly any money to their name. They're working a dead-end job, and they're working paycheck to paycheck, and they're going to fight like that.
Yeah, and they're wearing jerseys from the 80s.
Yeah. Right, because they can't afford a new one. How do you think some guy who has got an authoritarian complex, who's got an ego beyond anything you can imagine, who's a warmonger, a hate monger, a bigot, a racist, and hates anybody who doesn't look like him, is going to do with a nuclear arsenal and a military at their command? Yeah. They're going to play the militaries off against each other.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, here's what it all comes down to. Despite all of our again, high technology, despite all of our things that we think that we're capable of and all of the heights of intelligence that we claim that we have, if you look from an evolutionary standpoint at things, we're only 2 hairs removed from a gorilla at this point, right? That's what it comes down to.
Or
so
that's
we're going to act
us,
that way as well.
Or that's what they want us to believe, because that's what they want us to be.
Right, exactly. Go
ahead.
ahead, Ryan. Oh, I was just going to say, yesterday on my episode of Open Eyes, I talked about exactly this kind of stuff that you're talking about, Ryan. I talked about respecting authority. That the problem with authority is that we, as a species, are still under this herd mentality sort of an aspect, and we're always looking for this alpha to lead us into things. And the alphas are just as stupid, I guess you could say, as the rest of the herd is, but just because they're a little bit stronger or a little bit faster or a little bit better able to con their way into being at the top, one way or the other, those authority figures lead us into destruction. They lead us right off of the cliffside, But it's the ones who are awake, who are aware to say, wait, there's a cliff over there, that actually stop. And some people stop, yes, but unfortunately most of them do follow that alpha.
Yeah, and it's part of social conditioning. I mean, it's like I know some people probably take offense to this. I know, Michael, you owned a pickup truck at once, but these guys that drive these jacked up trucks with with their camo on, and they walk around thinking that they're these big muscle guys that go to the gym. That very male testosterone alpha male mentality. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, and I had the trucks for the business, but when I wasn't doing jobs, I drove my little Buick Skylark.
So you have that kind of a mentality, and you put that mentality, mixing it with sociopathic tendencies, into a position of enormous power where you have at your fingertips the ability to basically send thousands of people to die. I mean, that alone is enough evidence and proof, just watching how people interact in a grocery store, in a retail store, in line at a movie theater, at a football game, a sporting event, seeing how people act there. Compare that with unimmeasurable power and no consequences, and just basically all the time in the world that you have to have as much fun as you want. You can do whatever you want. It's like playing a game of Risk for these people. That, to go back to your original question, is why we have so much destruction in the world, because we worship the god of chaos, and that chaos prevails all around us.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the slaves, they get conditioned. They get conditioned by these reality shows. So people think now, how many people in the world right now think, well, if my car gets towed, I'm going to go to the tow company and I'm going to throw a brick through their window, and then I could jump in my vehicle quick and break through the fence and leave. This is what people think, because they're being conditioned like that with this reality television that's not reality
at
terrible.
All. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
If you sit back for a second, and believe me, I know you guys aren't like this. Your wives aren't like this. Most of the listeners, if you listen to this show for more than a half hour, I highly doubt that you're like this. But if you really look, and I know the younger generation, my generation, I'm much younger, is is beginning to wake up more than a lot of the older generations, those that are 60, 70 years old, our grandparents. That generation is actually the one that's kind of holding us back a little bit in terms of evolving in a way. My generation is the one that's coming about and actually kind of waking up. But at the same time, the people that are not awake, the people that have been conditioned, it's that, again, that pickup truck, male, camo, protein shake, exercising, working out to have the biggest and best muscles, to get the best girl, that evolution of Darwinianism of the... Go ahead.
And then they get old and they can't get anything from their looks anymore, and then they're lost. They don't know what to do because they wasted their time putting their makeup on.
And the guys that act like that, the funny thing is, women are conditioned, and I, if you're a woman out there, if you're a young girl and you disagree with me, sit down and have a really hard look at your life. I bet you that you fall into this category, because almost all girls do, and almost all guys that are outside of the line of work that we do, and the listeners that listen to this have this kind of a mentality in some way, shape, or form, just maybe not as extreme as the muscle guy driving the huge pickup truck that's all jacked up. But that mentality, women are conditioned to believe that is the ideal candidate, that is the alpha male, that is who they need to be with. And no matter how terrible that guy treats them, because the guy is ignorant and stupid and has no idea how to communicate with another human, it's just grunts and caveman mentality. No matter how bad or how physically abusive that person might be, the woman stays with him because, well, he's the most attractive. Subconsciously they think this. He's the one that I have to be with because, that everybody else is below me. That female mentality of it was like just like a slave to the male, as we have a male-dominant society. And when you turn it the other way around, men are conditioned to be with women that act a certain way. And if women don't act that certain way, even if the woman is a wonderful woman, even if the man is a wonderful man to a woman, in whatever case, whichever direction you want to spin it, if that person acts differently, if that woman or that man acts differently than the social conditioned norms of how a male or a female is supposed to act, even if it's positive, the opposite will actually cause a chain reaction which will split up that relationship because, well, even though that woman was really nice, even though that man was really nice, he didn't act like a real man. He didn't act, or she didn't act like a real woman. So it causes a ripple effect in society, and it causes all of these ramifications to happen. Plus, if you guys, it really irritates me. You talk about reality television shows, men and women. How many people today, if you go out, just seriously, go out, do this experiment yourself if you're listening, go out to the store and just walk through the store, any store, and look at how many people are on their cell phones, whether they're in a relationship with somebody or they're standing there by themselves, on their cell phones, social media. When that person goes home, it's usually 19 hours a day if they got the day off in front of that television, and that's all that they do. That's all that they know. No wonder people are so brain dead.
The only time you're going to find people in a store without their phones out is Black Friday, because they need both hands.
Exactly. Hands to beat the hell out of everybody else because that item's $2 cheaper.
And for a great example of what you're talking about with all of that, Ryan, I'll give you a great example. Look at the idea of men who are stuck in the friend zone. With women, you're this guy.
I have a house
you're this guy who has dedicated himself to, being around this woman who is, still constantly treating him as a friend. They're just friends, always just friends, no matter how good this guy is to her. And then she complains to him, why can't I find a nice guy? Well, hello!
Absolutely, Ira. Round of applause for Ira. You got it, man. That's exactly what it is.
And in a lot of cases, if he's smart, he tries to hook her up with somebody.
Yeah.
See, we've all experienced this. That's exactly how it works. Yeah, she complains to him, Ira, because she can't find anybody who's nice.
Yeah, and it's just such it's like the facepalm moment. That's all that you can really do. It's like, okay, I got to walk away from you now because I can't handle the depths of the stupidity that you have in this situation. I mean, here you have the nicest person in the world who's treating you like you're a goddess, and you look at him and say, "Why can't I find somebody like you?"
Well, that's not enough. I mean, listen, you got to have attraction. If there's no attraction there, I don't care how nice you are. You know, it becomes a business arrangement if you're not in it because of that.
You're right, Michael. But no. I mean, you know what Ira's saying, though, right?
Well, yeah, I do. But I just wanted to make that clear because some women saying, well, hey, what if you don't like them? What if you're not that into them? Well, you're right. So there's another aspect to it. But I get what you're saying. It's like they're looking for each other, but they're just too stupid to know it.
Well, hey, that's part of social conditioning too, because women and men have both been conditioned to believe that no matter how good the situation is, it can always be better. You can always find something that's a little bit better, even if that's
the grass is always greener, no matter how good you have it, and that is the case. And you're never going to be satisfied with what you have either. It always, all of this stuff, yeah, exactly. All of this stuff, it also reminds me of a meme that kind of goes around of first world problems, of how these people are complaining that they don't have the right food, that they don't have the right, enough money to buy organic and all of this kind of stuff. And so then they eat Twinkies and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, that really is a first world problem. You're complaining about the things that you have and not realizing what you don't have. You're not looking at the other side of the coin, where you could be this person who's living on the streets destitute and literally digging through the trash for every little scrap of food that you can find. That attitude of gratitude, I think, is what is really missing in a lot of the world right now. And I think that does relate to a lot of the problems that we see happening in the world right now, where people just are so ungrateful for what they have, and they're constantly seeking more and more and more. That drives that consumer mentality that's again socially engineered into us, and it really does cause a large amount of problems. And then you have again those alphas that are out there that push those kind of mentalities.
You said alpha, and I started thinking about Peter.
See, you've been socially conditioned to think so.
Yeah, see, it's trauma. It takes time. I haven't had the right therapy yet.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll give the listeners a perfect example of what Ira's talking about. If any of you out there have a cell phone, and most people do, whether you have AT&T, Verizon, or Sprint, you know that most of these companies now have the upgrade program. And I'm not talking about the upgrade every 2 years. You can upgrade to a newer phone because the one you have is probably beat up and a little bit out of date and worn out. I'm talking about the update program that's available every 4 months, every 5 months, where you can switch your phone out every couple of months because a new version of it came out.
Yeah, they got to keep you up to date. I mean, how are they going to track you if you don't keep up with them?
Oh, absolutely, because the software keeps getting broken.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a major. These corporations waste so much for the bottom line. It's a major waste of resources and a major waste of time, and it all has to do about making money and controlling people. And if you really begin to break that down, what you're talking about, Ira, and what we're talking about collectively here tonight, that idea that everything's always, the grass is always greener on the other side, that there could always be something better, that my phone's not good enough, I'll just get a new phone. And people that do the same thing with car trade-ins, every 6 months they got to trade their car in for something new just because the bank told them that they could refinance. And people, it's always got to be new, got to buy a new shirt, buy a new pants, buy new clothes, buy a new car, buy a new phone, buy a new computer.
And for me, I say, if you could do those things and it makes you happy, go ahead and do them. I say use common sense, just like with eating Twinkies. Hey, if you like Twinkies, go ahead and have some, but make sure that you understand. It's like people who smoke cigarettes. Understand the risk that you're putting yourself at.
But the thing is, Michael, I think, just to interject with what you're saying, tell me what you think about this. People that do that think that they're happy by buying the new phone every 6 months, buying the new car every 6 months, they're not really happy. It's an artificial happiness. It just fills a void for a temporary portion of time, and that's why they feel the need to go buy it again in 6 months.
Well, yeah, I don't mean so much that. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game. But I'm talking about people who, buy new clothes and they want to trade their car in. And I guess if you got it like that, go ahead. But, they'll find when they get older and they get sick that, none of that stuff matters anymore because you can't take it with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really does. It comes down to that social engineering type thing. For me, if you're going to be that way, be that way. Whatever, that's fine. What I'm trying to basically advocate is that people take a look at what they're doing and try to find, okay, am I truly happy doing this stuff, or are there other ways that I could do to improve my life and to improve the life of others around me without having to basically rely on consuming resources, for instance, that we are limited with, of going out to buy a product that if you do the research and that product was made in a sweatshop in China, for instance, where children literally 4 and 5 years old are pinned down and made to work in these different shops and to create these items that we then consume on this constant basis. It's that cycle of misery basically is what it comes down to.
Why do you think that yellow ball bounces around in Walmart and lowering prices all the time?
Right, exactly. And that is what I'm talking about with all of this stuff. It's not necessarily of people who do this to try to find happiness and that sort of thing. If that's your thing, go ahead, whatever. But when it comes down to it, what I would like for people to be aware of is that there are better ways to try to find like true happiness, basically, as opposed to just going with the social engineering aspect of if you consume, then you'll be happy.
But you know what? People got to find out for themselves. They're never going to listen to us, and I wouldn't want them to. That's how when I was younger, I was like that. When I was in school, I wanted the best of this and the best of that. I wanted my Pumas and my Nikes and all that crap. And, and as I got older, and not much older, but as I got older, I started learning quick that, none of that crap mattered. It's, I've started over so many times. I've left everything behind and I've started over so many freaking times. I don't get attached to you have your personal belongings, those things you like to have with you. Other than that, I'm not attached to any of that crap. It's like my TV's old. The only thing I have to keep up to date on is the stuff I use for this show. I mean, that's a must. But outside of that, I could care less. My car's got rust holes in it. As long as it gets me where I'm going, I could give a damn.
Well, you had the computer that was on IVs, so,
Yeah, and I have laid it to rest. It's gone to the nursing home out in the garage, and, it's not doing so good. So, we're thinking about, it's signed on its license that we could use its parts, but I don't think we could do anything with any of those parts because they're so old.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that kind of consumerism thing that we've been forced into thinking is the correct way to be, or the way to go, I guess you could say. The big problem with it, like I said, it kind of drives this cycle of destruction, and people just kind of fall into that cycle, and they will not only consume the resources that again are limited, but also it consumes yourself as well, because you're not finding the actual truth of things, And
if you go in any of these stores, go on, and if you're in Rochester, go in any of those Hindu stores there on Lyle Avenue, and walk in and go up to the counter. Notice how all the cigarette signs and advertisements are right about child level. They're all right there, and they've got flavors. You could get cigars or cigarettes, and you can get flavors now. Cherry and mango and all that stuff they've got. Now, what do you think those flavors? Do you think those are for the adults? Of course not. They're so the kids, that does taste like peaches. And, and so this is all targeted towards our children, just like aspartame is, just like Big Pharma is targeting our children with medications that they don't need. All they need is parents. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Again, consume. It drives a sadness, and that is, I think, again, sort of the basis of why we have a lot of the issues in the world that we have today, is because so many people are driven by this attitude of consumption, and because of that, we have to now find other means of resources, other ways of resources, because then the profits get, as the resources get consumed, the profit margins get smaller, so they have to find these other resources elsewhere. And hey, if they're owned by another country, well, our oil is under your dirt, so we have to get it out. That's essentially what it comes down to. It really does kind of drive this cycle of destruction that we find ourselves in. And it, I think, is, going back to the topic of the whole night here, part of what we see as the entirety of history, that this exact type of cycle has been going on from the beginnings of what we now know as history, and maybe even before. And I would hope that if we are quote unquote evolving, that we can get into a frame of humanity that is away from this type of thing and actually maybe grow spiritually, for instance, or to at least take a look around and realize, hey, things are a lot different than what we've been told.
Amen to that. Well, guys, we're just about out of time here, so I'm going to give you all, I'll give you both, an opportunity for a finisher here. And we've got coming up next is the Secret Teachings here on the LNM Radio Network. So you stay tuned for that. And the schedule is over on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the radio schedule tab, and it's all right there. We're going to be updating it because we got some new stuff coming. But anyways, whoever wants to start out.
Go for it, Ryan.
All right. Well, as you know, my website is www.thesecretteachings.info. I guess The Secret Teachings is coming up next here on LNM, so stay tuned for that and all of the other great shows that we have here 24 hours a day. If you can't sleep at night, turn it on over to LNM. I think we're on TuneIn now. We've got an application up, so plenty of ways to listen to the LNM Radio Network. Last week on the Secret Teachings, I talked about the Black Vatican, and I dismantled the three pillars of the Vatican. And as well, I talked about the Beltane Festival. That episode is just now uploaded to thesecretteachings.info. I'm sure it will be playing on LNM again as a repeat here soon, but it was a fantastic episode. I listened back to it again. For the first time in a while, I've listened to one of my shows I've recorded, and there's just so much information about the origins of the Vatican and institutionalized religion, and I just completely dismantled it. So if you want to know more about that, and that's also in relation to my new book, False Prophets, that's coming out in a couple of months. It's a great episode, and it's up on the website, thesecretteachings.info, for free. This week on the show, I'm actually interviewing with Ira, Dr. Layla Ali, who joined us on the last frequency a couple weeks ago. And then the week after that, I've got Aaron Murakami, who's probably one of the most incredible men I've ever spoken to about free energy. So you don't want to miss that. That will be coming up on the 26th of April on The Secret Teachings. Other than that, I say do the research for yourself, do the math, stop letting people tell you what to think, including myself, and connect the dots between seemingly unconnected people, places, and events in the world that seem so complex will actually begin to make sense. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ira.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Ira?
For me, I'll just say my shows can be caught on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Go to the chat and listen page and listen Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have very interesting conversations with people, as well as giving my own opinions on topics of the day, and hopefully you guys get a very large amount of information out of it. Again, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch it on OpenEyesNetwork.com. I have all of my archives available there. Until next time, guys, keep safe out there and have fun, and thank you so much for letting me be here tonight.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, and everyone else, thank you for tuning in. This has been a broadcast of Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. You could get this will be archived sometime within the next couple hours. It will be archived. Usually it's within the hour, but you never can tell. So it'll be available on the archive page on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. And again, I apologize to anybody who's had trouble getting onto the site with your phones. I am on it now. I promise you. We're going to get that taken care of. We're working on it, and I'm beating my guy with a bat. It's got to be done. So, folks, keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. Good night, everybody.